Chapter 1188, Prince had to hug his thigh tightly. You are even more powerful than my master. Can you teach me alchemy? I am the art of water refinement while you are the art of fire refinement. I can't teach you. But my master said that water refinement and fire refinement are inseparable. There is no difference in the aspect of condensing pills. The speed and success rate of condensing pills depend on one's mastery. I can't teach you anything either. Everything depends on one's talent. Naturally, one will be able to grasp it quickly if one is talented. You just don't want to teach me, HMPH. In the room, after Wang Xian revealed his alchemy skills, Long Luo pestered him with admiration, wanting him to teach her alchemy skills. However, Wang Xian didn't have the leisure time to do so. Furthermore, no one taught him his alchemy skills. It all depended on the fire of origin and his strong control. Alchemy indeed depended on one's talent. Therefore, he dealt with it directly. Long Luo looked at Wang Xian as he read through the information. She pouted her lips and stared at him unhappily. She was the princess of the Radiant Empire. Who wouldn't pamper her and fawn on her? Furthermore, she was so pretty. This fellow didn't even look at her. He was staring at the information without blinking, causing her to gnash her teeth. In the end, she snorted softly and returned to her room unhappily. She began to pack up her belongings. Brother Wang Xian, we have already packed up. If there's nothing else, let's set off now. Just after noon, Long Xiaotian came over personally and greeted Wang Xian. All right, let's go then. Wang Xian nodded his head and walked to the side of Ling Zilin. He rode on it directly. Long Xiaotian looked at him with some envy. Brother Wang Xian, there are a total of 50 to 60 people who came with me this time. Therefore, our speed might be a little slower. However, we are not too far from the tomb of the demi-human. We can arrive there in a day and a half. All right, there's no rush. Wang Xian nodded and followed Long Xiaotian to the entrance of the mayor's residence. At this moment, there were more than 50 people gathered at the entrance of the mayor's residence. Apart from the two handmaidens, the rest of them were all at least at level 7 of the extraordinary realm. This level of strength was not considered weak. A group of people was pulling 5 carriages. All of them were filled with spiritual herbs. Wang Xian took a glance and was surprised to find that there were more than 1,000 spiritual herbs of transcendent level 9. There were also 200 to 300 spiritual herbs of half-step void interpretation level. It seems that the background of the second prince's mother is not simple. To be able to give him so many elixirs to nurture his subordinates. Wang Xian thought to himself. This Long Xiaotian was the most talented young man he had seen so far. Furthermore, he had a strong background. He might really have a chance to become the king of the Radiant Dragon Empire. The more than 50 people in front of the mayor's residence had seen Wang Xian before. When they saw him riding on the insightful void beast, their faces were filled with respect and awe. Let's go, let's go. Long Xiaotian said loudly in a good mood. The group of people immediately headed outside. Sir, come back to Windsalt City often if you have time. Lord Mayor, have a safe journey. On both sides of the street, the people of Windsalt Town waved at Long Xiaotian respectfully to send him off. The matter of the fierce beasts attacking the city had completely won the hearts of all the people of Windsalt Town. Long Xiaotian waved his hand, his face full of smiles. Looking at the people around him, he couldn't help but feel lucky for what he did yesterday. Not only did he gain the people's support, but after the fierce beasts attacked the city, some people also learned of his identity as the second prince. This made the largest aristocratic family in Windsalt Town and a few mercenary groups come to follow him. Following him was not only his identity as a prince, but more importantly, his performance yesterday had made everyone admire him. This time, he had gained more than a dozen powerful experts to follow him, which made his power a lot stronger. Let's go! The old man at the front shouted. Everyone sped up and rushed out. They drove out of the city gate and headed towards the north. The one pulling the carriage was an iron-green horse of extraordinary 7th level. Its speed was very fast and it could control the goods to fly in the air. However, compared to the speed of the spirit purple Qilin, it was many times slower. However, Wang Xian was not in a hurry. He estimated that he had at least 1 million dragon crystals in his account for the medicinal pills that Long Xiaotian needed to refine. 1 million dragon crystals was equivalent to more than 10 billion middle-grade spirit stones. This made Wang Xian glad that he had made the right choice by coming to the tomb of the demi-human. "Hey, Brother Wang, can you let me sit on this spirit purple unicorn as well?" After driving for more than an hour, Long Luo, who was riding an extraordinary level 8 iron-green horse, came to Wang Xian's side with some envy and said to her, "Sit at the back. Be careful." Wang Xian looked at her and nodded his head lightly. "Yay, that's great." Long Luo's face revealed a hint of excitement. She leaped onto the back of the Ling Zilin and touched its shiny face. Her eyes were filled with excitement. "Brother Wang's pet is still the best. Even my father's pet won't let me ride it. I hate it so much." Long Luo was lying on top of it happily. Her legs were shaking non-stop. Wang Xian took a look and smiled faintly. He didn't say anything. "If only I had such a powerful pet." "No, there's no need for it to be so powerful. It's fine even if it's a half-step void interpretation or transcendent level 9. Long Luo was lying on Ling Zilin's body as she kept talking. Wang Xian didn't pay attention to her. Ling Zilin was big enough. It wouldn't be a problem for him to carry another person. The young girl felt bored when she saw Wang Xian ignoring her. She fell asleep while lying on her stomach. Long Xiaotian and the others who were beside her took a look and smiled. They continued to drive forward. Their speed was not considered slow. They flew straight past the mountains. By nightfall, they had traveled 3,000 to 4,000 kilometers. Wang Xian sat on Ling Zilin and read the information. He closed his eyes and thought about the combination of dual attribute attacks. "Stop. Everyone, let's take a break." At night, the old man in front shouted. Everyone stopped. Wang Xian also asked Ling Zilin to stop. Long Luo jumped down from the back and ran happily towards Long Xiaotian. "Brother Wang Xian, come and eat something." Long Xiaotian smiled at Wang Xian and said, "All right." Wang Xian looked around. They were in a forest surrounded by dense black trees. The entire area seemed to be filled with danger at night. However, with their strength, they were not afraid even in such an environment. Ling Zilin laid on the ground and closed his eyes to rest. Wang Xian walked towards Long Xiaotian and the rest. "This shadow forest is very dangerous at night. If it were us, we wouldn't dare to stay here at night. Hee, now that we have the prince, Lord Bai and that mysterious lord, we are not afraid even if the void interpretation beasts come." A few members of the mercenary group who followed Long Xiaotian from Wind Salt Town laughed and chatted. Wang Xian walked over and sat down to have a meal with them. "Oh? There are a bunch of animals that are looking for death." Suddenly, when they had just rested for more than 10 minutes, Bai Qingshan stopped the chopsticks in his hand and looked around. Chapter 1189, Prince. He had to hug his thigh tightly. The Black Shadow Forest could be considered to be the outer part of the Bloody Forest in the Ladyboy Graveyard. The area of this forest was about 500 kilometers in radius. It was not very big, but because there were often demonic beasts from the Ladyboy Graveyard coming here, it made the entire forest extremely dangerous. Even those mercenary groups with extraordinary Type 8 powerhouses did not dare to stay here at night. The word shadow perfectly illustrated the dangers of this forest. Bai Qingshan scanned his surroundings with a cold expression. The few people beside him looked around and frowned slightly. Wang Xian turned his head around as well. He looked around with his bewitching eyes and raised his eyebrows slightly. There are quite a number of people here, and they are not weak either. There was a hint of surprise in his eyes as he looked around. What? Long Luo looked around. She was only at Transcendent Level 5 and did not see anything. Ling Zilin, who was lying on the ground, looked around in surprise. He then looked at Wang Xian and continued to lie on the ground, ignoring him. There's a black shadow leopard. Everyone, be careful. Bai Qingshan stood up slowly and reminded everyone. What? A black shadow leopard? Black shadow leopard. We didn't realize that the black shadow leopard is the king of the black shadow forest. It has the strength of an ordinary level 8 or 9. The subordinates of Long Xiaotian quickly picked up their weapons and stood up. They scanned their surroundings vigilantly. They did not sense the arrival of any fierce beasts around them, and their faces revealed a vigilant expression. Roar! At this moment, a muffled low roar sounded, and numerous blood-red eyes densely appeared around them in the middle of the night. Hiss, so many! Long Xiaotian's subordinates sucked in a breath of cold air, and a shocked expression appeared on their faces. There were at least 50 to 60 of them in the surroundings, completely surrounding them. Even on the trees above, there were black shadow leopards staring at them coldly, preventing them from escaping. You're courting death. Long Xiaotian stood up, his eyes flickering with a cold light. The group of black shadow leopards in the surroundings might not have realized what kind of opponents they were surrounding. Their gazes were ice-cold as they opened their mouths and slowly surrounded them. Roar! At this moment, a 3-meter-long black shadow leopard with bright eyes opened its mouth and revealed its teeth. It jumped to the front. It had a strong body and a strong figure. It looked extremely ferocious. It stared at Wang Xian and the rest and roared in a low voice. It was ready to launch a fatal attack at any time. Wow, this big cat is so cool. Long Luo looked at the black shadow leopard with a look of surprise on her face. She sized it up from top to bottom. Long Xiaotian shook his head speechlessly. This is a black shadow leopard. The one in front of us is only at the half-step void interpretation level. It's very ferocious. Of course I know it's a black shadow leopard. Long Luo said without turning her head. Then why did you say it's a big cat? Long Xiaotian was speechless. I was just saying that. Long Luo said without changing her expression, causing Long Xiaotian to shut his mouth obediently. He knew that he was just looking for trouble. Roar! A cold howl came from the leader of the black shadow leopards. The sound echoed throughout the night sky. Walala! One by one, the black shadow leopards appeared in the surroundings and surrounded them. There were 50 to 60 black shadow leopards. The weakest among them was at the 7th level of the Transcendence Realm. Most of them were at the 8th level of the Transcendence Realm, and there were quite a few at the 9th level of the Transcendence Realm. Bastards looking for death. The two middle-aged men swept their gaze across the group of black shadow leopards. With a move of their arms, they drew out their long swords and sabers. The surrounding people also took out their weapons. Bai Qingshan did not make a move. As an expert at the Profound Void Realm, it was impossible for him to make a move just because he encountered a ferocious beast. If that was the case, it would be useless for the others. He would only make a move when he encountered a problem that could not be solved. If we kill them, we will be able to obtain quite a good harvest. The black shadow panther's skin is quite valuable. A middle-aged man at the half-step insightful emptiness realm glanced at the surrounding black shadow panthers and said with a cold smile. Yes. Everyone immediately clenched the weapons in their hands. Kill. A middle-aged man at the half-step insightful emptiness realm moved and directly swept toward the fierce beasts in front of him. Another half-step void interpretation realm expert directly attacked the black shadow leopard leader. In an instant, Long Xiaotian and his subordinates erupted with terrifying strength. This caused the black shadow leopard leader to be slightly stunned. Roar! It roared loudly, and all the black shadow leopards turned into black shadows and directly charged over. Roar roar! In a breath's time, the half-step void interpretation realm expert who attacked first easily pierced the head of a black shadow leopard with the long sword in his hand and easily killed it. The black shadow panther let out a miserable cry and fell to the ground. Such a handsome black shadow panther was killed directly. What a pity. In the center, Long Luo looked at the black shadow panther who was killed and said regretfully, "Roar roar." Seeing their companions killed, the group of black shadow panthers took advantage of the situation and became bloodthirsty. Each of them threw their heads back and let out a long roar. They roared angrily and charged toward the group of people. Another one died. In the middle, Long Luo looked at another black shadow leopard being killed. Her face revealed a look of heartache. Oh right. Suddenly, she raised her head and stared at Wang Xian. Her eyes flickered as she asked, "Brother Wang, aren't you a beast tamer? Can you tame that big black cat for me? If it's really not possible, I can buy it with money. I have a lot of spiritual liquid. Can you tame it and use it as my mount?" As she spoke, she pulled Wang Xian's arm and looked at him expectantly. "Long Luo, stop fooling around. It's not that easy for a beast tamer to tame a ferocious beast. It requires a long period of training. Even if you tame it, you won't be able to control it." Long Xiaotian saw her pestering Wang Xian. He patted her head and glared at her. "Oh!" Long Luo pouted. "You want this mount?" When Wang Xian heard her words, his heart skipped a beat as he looked at her. "Brother Wang, can you subdue it?" Long Luo's eyes lit up as she asked hurriedly. "There shouldn't be a problem." Wang Xian looked at the black shadow leopards around him. His heart skipped a beat as he looked at Ling Zilin. "Injure all the black shadow leopards. Don't let them escape." Wang Xian ordered Ling Zilin. "Roar!" Ling Zilin, who was lying on the ground, let out a muffled sound as he stood up. "Roar!" Following that, a roar filled with a powerful pressure was heard. The voice was filled with the aura of a king of the see-through realm. All the black shadow leopards paused for a moment at this moment. A hint of fear could be seen in their eyes. Brother Wang Xian, what are you trying to do?" At the side, Long Xiaotian stared at Wang Xian in astonishment when he saw Wang Xian ordering his mount to take action. What was he trying to do? Was he really going to tame that half-step void interpretation level ferocious beast? Was he joking? It would take at least 1 to 2 months or even longer after he had tamed it. Furthermore, he could only command it himself after he had tamed it. Why would he listen to the orders of others? With a cave-level mount, also need this black shadow panther? Chapter 1190, Prince had to hug his thigh tightly. Roar! Within the black shadow forest, a beast roar sounded out, and a terrifying pressure covered the area in front. In the surroundings, all the black shadow leopards' bodies stiffened. They looked at the spirit purple Qilin, and a trace of fear appeared in their eyes. The gap between the profound void martial stage and the transcendent martial stage was very, very big. If the profound void martial stage didn't want to let the transcendent martial artists know of their strength, it would be very difficult for the transcendent martial artists to sense it. It was the same for the fierce beasts. When the spirit Zilin lay there motionless, the fierce beasts would not be able to sense the terrifying strength contained within its body. However, once the profound void martial stage experts erupted with terrifying strength, it was not something that the extraordinary experts could resist. That lord has made a move. If that lord's pet makes a move, then there is no need for us to make a move. When the group of Long Xiaotian's subordinates saw that Ling Zilin had made a move, they all stopped. When a void interpretation level ferocious beast made a move, there was no need for them at all. Roar roar! After Ling Zilin's roar rang out, the leader of the black shadow leopards revealed a panicked look in his eyes. He hurriedly roared loudly and quickly fled into the dark forest. The rest of the black shadow leopards also immediately fled in all directions in panic. Roar roar! Ling Zilin let out a low roar, and a disdainful look appeared in its eyes. It looked at the fierce beasts that were fleeing in all directions, and gently swung its tail. Crackle, crackle. Bolts of lightning were emitted from its tail, and directly attacked the escaping Black Shadow Panther. The Black Shadow Panther leader, which had instantly fled 1,000 meters away, felt the lightning coming from behind. Its soft black fur stood up, and it desperately tried to dodge. Crack! Crack! However, the difference in level was too great. The powerful lightning landed directly on the body of the leader of the Black Shadow Leopards. The power of the lightning paralyzed his entire body as he fell to the ground. The group of Black Shadow Leopards around him fell to the ground in an instant. Brother Wang Xian, this mount of yours is already at the peak of the first level of the see-through realm. Bai Qingshan, who was standing beside Wang Xian, sized up Ling Zilin and said to him with a smile. Wang Xian nodded his head lightly and watched as Ling Zilin flew over. One by one, he brought over the Black Shadow Leopards that were paralyzed all over. Ling Zilin's control over his strength was very precise. Each of the Black Shadow Leopards convulsed under the lightning, and their lives were not in danger. Soon, more than 50 Black Shadow Leopards were thrown in front of the bonfire. Brother Wang, I want this. I want the largest one. Can you tame it for me? I'll give you the spiritual liquid, and I'll buy it from you. Long Luo saw more than 50 Black Shadow Leopards being captured. She pointed at the leader of the Black Shadow Leopards excitedly. Don't get involved. Long Xiaotian directly dragged Long Luo over. He looked at Wang Xian curiously and said, Brother Wang Xian, don't you already have a mount at the insightful void tier? Why do you still want to tame some ferocious beasts? It will take a long time to tame so many ferocious beasts, right? As he spoke, he looked at the Black Shadow Leopards one by one. His gaze landed on the leader at the front, and his eyes were burning with passion. He did not have a mount. The best way to control a ferocious beast was to raise it since it was a cub. In this way, the ferocious beast would be more obedient. Another option was to purchase a well-tamed ferocious beast. However, the strength of a well-tamed ferocious beast would decrease slightly. In the end, even if it was a well-tamed ferocious beast, you would have to spend a lot of time to make it listen to you. Moreover, the best thing was that one's strength was stronger than that of a ferocious beast. Otherwise, even some well-tamed ferocious beasts would sometimes lose control. It was not that easy to obtain a good mount and a good pet. He did not have so much time to nurture a pet mount. I don't want it. Didn't Long Luo want a mount? I can sell it to her after taming it. Wang Xian looked at him and said with a smile. His words caused Long Xiaotian's expression to stiffen. Bai Qingshan and the elder also looked at Wang Xian in astonishment. Brother Wang Xian, with my sister's strength, even if I tame her, I won't be able to control her. Furthermore, it should take you quite some time to tame them, right? Long Xiaotian smiled at Wang Xian in astonishment and said. It won't take long. Wang Xian shook his head and didn't give them too much explanation. He walked straight to the leader of the Black Shadow Leopard. Whoa! Seeing Wang Xian walking over, the spirit purple Kailan followed respectfully by his side. The leader of the Black Shadow Leopard looked at him in fear and let out a painful moan. Wang Xian walked to its side and looked at the leader of the Black Shadow Leopard who was nearly 4 meters in size. He reached out and touched its head. Boom! A wave of pressure from the divine dragon charged directly at the Black Shadow Leopard. Roar! 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 That kind of noble aura came from the pressure of the bloodline. It caused the Black Shadow Leopard's body to tremble violently. It closed its eyes and trembled non-stop. Buzz! Wang Xian's aura changed. The high and mighty aura became gentle. A warm feeling entered the mind of the leader of the Black Shadow Leopard. The trembling body of the leader of the Black Panther stopped. It opened its eyes and stared at Wang Xian in awe. I am your king, your leader. Wang Xian squeezed out a drop of fresh blood and floated above the head of the leader of the Black Panther. The blood contained his spirit and will. Roar! Roar! The leader of the Black Panther let out a low roar. Without any resistance, the blood entered its mind directly. Water spirit. Wang Xian touched its body. The powerful water attribute healing ability entered the body of the leader of the Black Shadow Panther. The injured body recovered quickly. Roar! Roar! The leader of the Black Shadow Panther stood up slowly and rubbed its head against Wang Xian's arm. Long Xiaotian, Bai Qingshan, Long Luo, and everyone around were completely stunned. What? What was going on? In just a few minutes, he had tamed a half-step void interpretation level ferocious beast. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, they would never have believed it. Beast tamer, wouldn't it take a few months or even longer to tame a ferocious beast? How could it be so fast now? Long Xiaotian widened his eyes and stared at Wang Xian in disbelief. He felt that he was shrouded in a mysterious veil. Powerful alchemy skills and terrifying beast taming skills. How could there be such a freakish person? Come here. I should be able to familiarize the leader of the Black Shadow Leopard with you within a day or two. In that case, you can also command it. Wang Xian waved his hand at Long Luo and said to her. Me? Brother Wang, that's great. I want the big black cat to be my mount. It's too handsome. When Long Luo heard Wang Xian's words, her face revealed an excited expression. She was so excited that her small face was flushed red. She quickly walked towards Wang Xian. Little sister, this half-step void interpretation level ferocious beast is not suitable for you. You will get injured if you touch it. You can't keep such a pet. However, Long Luo had just taken 2 steps when an arm pulled her back and spoke to her gently. After that, Long Xiaotian looked at Wang Xian with a glint in his eyes. Give this Black Shadow Leopard leader to me, brother Wang Xian. I will buy it for twice the price of a half-step void interpretation pet egg. Chapter 1191, Arrived. Long Xiaotian, what did you say? You're a bad guy. Don't snatch my pet. That's my mount. Brother Wang gave it to me. Long Luo was stunned for a full 2 seconds when she heard Long Xiaotian's words. Then, she grabbed his arm and shouted loudly with a flushed face. Long Luo, don't be disobedient. What's the use of a little girl like you taking this mount? If you really can't do it, there are still some Black Shadow Leopards at Transcendent Level 9. How about I give you some spirit stones and let brother Wang Xian tame them for you? Long Xiaotian looked at his sister who was frantically grabbing onto him and said awkwardly. No, no, this big black cat is mine. I asked for it first. You can't bully me. Otherwise, I will tell mother. Long Luo grabbed his arm and shouted loudly. Little girl, do you know how much a half-step void interpretation beast is worth? Do you have that many spirit stones? Furthermore, you usually stay in the palace. What use is there for you to have this mount? Long Xiaotian's face turned black as he tried to coax her. Wang Xian was stunned when he saw this scene. He didn't expect Long Xiaotian to be so shameless. The Prince of the Radiant Dragon Empire, a half-step void interpretation expert, and his sister's mount. This was really... Phew! Bai Qingshan and the elder exchanged a look. Their eyes were filled with shock. Brother Wang Xian, I didn't expect your beast-taming skills to be so strong. I would like to ask if you can tame all the other Black Shadow Leopards and listen to the commands of others? Bai Qingshan asked him with a face full of anticipation. With my help, there won't be any problems. Wang Xian nodded his head. After taming the Ling Zilin last time, Wang Xian realized that his beast-taming skills were a little abnormal. With the beast-taming skills of the Baisun Elder and the top-notch bloodline of the Dragon God in his universe, it was extremely fast to tame ferocious beasts that were weaker than him. Even if the Baisun Elder was reborn, he wouldn't be able to reach his level. Really? Bai Qingshan's eyes flashed with excitement and passion. That's great. We will buy all the Black Shadow Leopards that you have tamed. What do you think, brother Wang Xian? No problem. Wang Xian nodded his head with a smile. There were more than 50 black shadow leopards that were at transcendent level 7, 8, and 9. If they were sold according to the value of the pet eggs, it would definitely be a huge income. Haha, that's great. Brother Wang Xian, I want all of these black shadow leopards. You are really my lucky star. Now, help me get this leader of the black shadow leopards to obey my orders. When Long Xiaotian heard Wang Xian's words, excitement flashed across his eyes as he laughed out loud in excitement. Wang Xian looked over and saw Long Luo pouting and glaring at his brother with a displeased expression. A smile appeared on his face. Sure. Following that, Wang Xian ordered the leader of the black shadow leopards to obey Wang Xian's orders and tame it. After subduing the leader of the black shadow leopards and the rest of the black shadow leopards, it was even easier. In less than half an hour, all the black shadow leopards were subdued. Prince Wang Xian, you must hold on tight to this thigh of yours. An hour later, the group set off again. It was different from before. Now, everyone was riding on a black shadow panther. Long Xiaotian was riding on the half-step void interpretation black shadow panther. Bai Qingshan and the old man followed beside him. The old man looked at Wang Xian, who was in the middle, and whispered to him. That's right. Bai Qingshan, who was at the side, nodded his head in agreement. This brother Wang Xian is too mysterious. He definitely doesn't come from an ordinary faction. Let's not talk about this. Just his powerful beast taming techniques. Prince, you must cling on to this thigh of his. I know. Long Xiaotian nodded his head. There was some excitement in his eyes as well. Currently, it was the assessment period for him to compete with his brothers for the title of Crown Prince. The final assessment was mostly about the faction. Influence represented one's own strength and the strength of one's subordinates. As long as he befriended Wang Xian and asked him to help tame all kinds of ferocious beasts in the future, his influence would be doubled or even more. For example, his brother had 100 subordinates who were at least at transcendent level 6. However, as long as he had 60 subordinates who were at transcendent level 6 and above, together with his 60 subordinates who rode on 60 ferocious beasts above transcendent level 6, he would be able to win. The current Wang Xian was like a huge lucky star that fell from the sky to him. He had to hug this thigh tightly. Furthermore, Wang Xian had already done him a favor. Facing such a lucky star and such a thigh, he knew what to do in the future. The group of them moved forward quickly. Along the way, Wang Xian helped Long Xiaotian and his underlings tame the black shadow leopard. Soon, more than 20 hours later, a gush of bloody smell came from the air. Wang Xian, who lowered his head and continued to simulate the combination of combat techniques, was slightly shocked. He quickly looked ahead. This is... At a glance, Wang Xian's pupils contracted slightly. His eyes revealed a look of shock. He stared ahead and breathed in the bloody air. He was extremely shocked. In front of him, there was an endless sea on the left, and a forest on the right. The color of the sea was not sky blue, but red. The sea breeze did not smell of salt, but of blood. The Red Sea water was like a terrifying pool of blood. The forest on the right was 200 to 300 meters tall and thick, with a diameter of about 10 meters. The ground of the forest was light red. Like the ocean, it was filled with the smell of blood. Brother Wang Xian, are you not used to the air here? The cemetery of the demi-humans, the so-called cemetery, is where the bones are buried. Even if you die here, there isn't even a corpse. Long Xiaotian rode on the black shadow leopard and came to his side. He said to him, "This is the biggest battlefield between the demonic beasts, vicious beasts, and humans. The blood-red ocean and the blood-red ground are not formed in a year or two. Instead, they have been accumulated over thousands of years. The thousands of years of battles are caused by the humans and ferocious beasts that have died here. There are at least tens of billions or even hundreds of billions of them. The sea is dyed red and the ground is soaked red. Let's go. The camp of the cemetery of the human demon race is ahead." Long Xiaotian pointed to the front and said, "Everyone, speed up." Everyone sped up. Wang Xian scanned his surroundings. They continued to travel for about 100 kilometers along the edge of the sea and the forest. A place that could not be called a city appeared in their line of sight. Long Xiaotian said that this is a camp just now. Now, it seems that this is really the case. Wang Xian looked ahead and mumbled. There was no city wall, and no formation. It was a camp by the sea. There were all kinds of buildings erected in the camp, and it looked a little messy. In the sky, people flew at will. There were no less than hundreds of thousands of people flying in the sky. Chapter 1192, Ancient Bloodstream Sect. The area in front of them was extremely huge. It was densely packed with all kinds of buildings. Although the place looked extremely messy, the area was huge. It was at least several times bigger than Bright Moon City, which was the largest city that Wang Xian had ever seen. As for the number of humans, Wang Xian estimated that there were at least 40 to 50 million people. Let's go, brother Wang Xian. Let's fly. On the small island by the sea in front of us, it's an island built by our Guanglong dynasty. It's specially inhabited by the royal family. Long Xiaotian pointed at the location by the sea and said to him. Wang Xian rode on the spirit purple Qilin and flew into the sky to take a look. By the sea, there were many man-made islands. Each island was not small, and the larger ones were about 10 kilometers in circumference. These islands looked extremely prosperous. Powerful formations covered the islands. Where is that? Wang Xian suddenly looked ahead. In the distance, he could vaguely see dilapidated palaces and dilapidated buildings. Some of these buildings extended into the sea, while others extended into the forest. They stretched as far as the eye could see. Wang Xian recalled the records that Long Xiaotian had given him over the past 2 days. This place was originally the territory of a powerful sect, the Bloodstream Sect, a few thousand years ago. At that time, the Bloodstream Sect was the undisputed overlord of the flowing sea region. It was said that there were more than a dozen experts at level 6 or 7 of the see-through realm. There were more than 1,000 experts above the see-through realm. It was said that this was the most glorious period in the flowing sea region. In the Blood Flow Sect, experts at the Profound Void realm would have their own mansions and blessed lands. Moreover, they had their own disciples. The entire Blood Flow Sect was only weaker than those empires, but its strength was definitely much higher than those empires. At that time, the Blood Flow Sect had more than 100,000 disciples. It was undoubtedly a huge force. However, the Bloodstream Sect was a force established by humans and demonic beasts. In the internal conflicts, 80 to 90% of the thousands of insightful Emptiness Realm experts were lost. Since then, the human experts of the Bloodstream Sect and the demonic beasts were at loggerheads, fighting to the death. After thousands of years of struggle, there was still no victor. The dilapidated buildings were the mansions and paradises of the insightful Emptiness Realm experts in the past. The Blood Flow Sect used to be a large sect built on a spirit stone lode. It was a true paradise. The residences of many insightful Emptiness Realm experts were also treasured lands. After the war broke out, the insightful Emptiness Realm experts died, but their residences remained. Every expert's residence was protected by a formation. There might be treasures or inheritances hidden inside. Even after thousands of years, a large portion of these experts' residences had yet to be explored. If one was lucky, they might be able to obtain the inheritances of rank 7 or even rank 8 Profound Void Martial experts. Apart from these residences, there were 4 other treasure grounds in the Demoness Graveyard. The Bloodstream Sect's Training Grounds. The Bloodstream Sect's Training Grounds. The Bloodstream Sect's Main Hall. The Heaven's Pride stage of the Bloodstream Sect. These 4 places were the treasure grounds that made many people go crazy. The training grounds for the weak, the glorious battlefield for the powerful mercenary groups, and the famous grounds for the strong Heaven's Pride. These words were the best explanation for the graveyard of the demi-humans. That island is the island of the royal family of the Radiant Empire. Long Xiaotian's voice sounded from the side. The island below said to Wang Xian. Wang Xian looked over. It was an island with a circumference of 10 kilometers. The environment above was very beautiful. The group flew over and arrived at the entrance. Greetings, Your Highness, Second Prince. Your Highness, the Princess. The island was protected by a formation. Once someone barged in, they would be discovered immediately. Therefore, they had to enter through the entrance. Long Xiaotian and Long Luo walked to the front. The guards at the entrance immediately bowed respectfully. Yes. Long Xiaotian nodded his head faintly and led his men into the island. Wang Xian followed by the side. Riding on the spirit purple unicorn, he was exceptionally eye-catching among the group of black shadow leopards. The four guards looked at the second prince's group in astonishment. Their eyes were filled with astonishment. Brother Wang Xian, you can stay beside us. Also, we will send someone to deliver the spiritual herbs and pill formulas to you later. Also, this spiritual liquid is the reward for Brother Wang Xian for taming the ferocious beasts. Long Xiaotian brought Wang Xian to a courtyard on the island. He pointed to a separate courtyard and said to him. Usually, only the distinguished guests of the royal family were qualified to stay in such a solitary courtyard. Alright, I will start refining pills later. If there's nothing important, I won't come out. Wang Xian nodded and said to him. Alright, Brother Wang Xian. There are a few handmaidens in the courtyard. You can instruct them on anything. Long Xiaotian sent Wang Xian to the front of the house before leaving. Wang Xian looked at the spiritual liquid bottle in his hand with a satisfied expression on his face. There was a total of 10,000 drops of spiritual liquid. According to the second prince, this was all his belongings. 10,000 drops of spiritual liquid was equivalent to 7 million dragon crystals of dragon energy. Even if Wang Xian needed 100 million dragon crystals to level up, this 7 million was not a small amount. The conversion of spiritual liquid to dragon crystals is obviously much more cost-effective than spiritual stones. Wang Xian thought to himself. He swallowed all the spiritual liquid directly. Then, he looked at the spiritual herbs at the side and the smile on his face grew wider. After these spiritual herbs were refined into elixirs, Wang Xian would be able to obtain over 1 million dragon crystals for his revenge. This Long Xiaotian is also a lucky star for me. As he thought to himself, Wang Xian immediately started to refine the elixirs one by one. Prince, the king has sent a message. He is full of praise for your performance in Wind Salt City. You are the most outstanding person in this assessment. In the neighboring courtyard, the old man who had been following Long Xiaotian reported with a smile on his face. Yes. Feng Xiaotian nodded with a smile on his face. He was also very happy. Prince, the first prince, the eighth prince, and the others have already rushed here 2 days ago. They have invited many people to hold a banquet. They want to find some followers. Should we also hold a banquet? The old man looked at Feng Xiaotian and suggested. Sure. Elder Liang will send invitations to some disciples of the Divine Wind Academy, some powerful mercenary groups that are close to our Light Dragon dynasty, and some other suitable people. Invite them over. The time is set for the day after tomorrow. Long Xiaotian thought for a moment and said. Yes, Prince. Leave it to this old subject. Elder Liang bowed and nodded, and immediately walked out. This time, let everyone witness the strength of Long Xiaotian. Long Xiaotian looked in the direction of the neighboring room with a strong look of confidence on his face. In the past, he had some experts from Wind Salt City following him. Coupled with his previous strength, he could be ranked in the top 3 among the princes. However, now that he had met Wang Xian, he had obtained more than 50 powerful ferocious beasts. His strength, he dared to guarantee, was definitely the strongest among the many princes. Chapter 1193, It's You. The Light Dragon Dynasty's island gradually became lively. The arrival of the princes had invited many young elites from various factions, as well as powerful members of the mercenary group. The Light Dragon Dynasty's influence in the Flowing Sea region was second only to the Blood Flow Empire. There were no more than 5 factions that could rival the Light Dragon Dynasty. As the prince of the Light Dragon Dynasty, it was very likely that he would be the future king of the Light Dragon Dynasty. Now that he had invited everyone to attend the banquet, there were naturally many people who came to give him face. Moreover, they also knew that it was the time for the princes to take the test. If they could follow the right master and become the favorite of the future king of the Light Dragon Dynasty, they would definitely have the chance to establish a great clan that would last for 1,000 years. For many people, this was also an opportunity and a gamble. Even if they lost the gamble, the price they had to pay wasn't very heavy. In the competition for the throne of the Light Dragon Dynasty, it was forbidden for princes to fight with each other. As the king of the Light Dragon Dynasty, if he saw princes scheming and fighting in secret, he would definitely cripple them. Therefore, they would follow the prince and would definitely be able to soar in the future. After the first prince and 8th prince held a banquet, the second prince's banquet also began. The entire Guanglong Empire's island was bustling with activity. Wang Xian ignored the clamor from the outside and stayed in his room to refine pills. Young Master Wang Xian! Young Master Wang Xian! The maid's soft voice came from outside. Wang Xian stared at her palm and waved it rapidly. The spiritual herbs formed a pill. Phew, what's the matter? Wang Xian asked directly. Young Master Wang Xian, the second prince asked me to ask you. The second prince will be holding a banquet this evening. Will you come by then, young master? The maid asked Wang Xian. We'll see when the time comes. Wang Xian looked at the spiritual herbs beside him but didn't give a definite answer. Yes, young master. The maid outside was slightly stunned and nodded immediately. The prince had personally asked her to come and ask. She didn't expect that the other party wouldn't give a clear answer. What was the identity of the young man inside? She thought in puzzlement and walked out. I should be able to finish the refinement in the evening. Should I go over and take a look? Wang Xian looked at the spiritual herbs beside him and thought to himself. I should go and take a look. Wang Xian thought to himself. The main reason why he came to the tomb of the demi-human was for the dragon energy. He could obtain over 1 million dragon energy just by refining some medicinal pills for the second prince. If he could get to know more people, he might have some unexpected gains. After these few days, Wang Xian had a vague idea of the strength of the Light Dragon Empire. The strongest person in the Light Dragon Empire was at level 5 of the See-Through Void tier, which was 1 level higher than the Star Moon King. The strongest person in the Flowing Sea region was the king of the Blood Flow Empire, at level 6 of the See-Through Void tier. The Light Dragon Empire did not only have 1 expert at level 5 of the See-Through Void tier. On the surface, there were at least 3 of them. There were around 100 See-Through Void tier experts. With his strength, he could easily wipe out 5 to 6 Star Moon kingdoms. The people that Long Shao Tian and the rest knew had a faction behind them that was stronger than the Star Moon Kingdom. Being able to get to know some people with status would be very beneficial to his collection of resources. Wang Xian quickly refined pills one by one. There was a 100% success rate. By refining 2 sets of pills, Wang Xian would be able to obtain 3 pills. With 8 pills, Wang Xian would be able to obtain 3 pills. He didn't need to pay for any spiritual herbs. To him, it was simply picking up money. It's done. At around 6 o'clock in the evening, Wang Xian saw the last of the spiritual herbs turning into pills. A smile appeared on his face. He stood up and put away all the pills. I'm going to take a look at this man-demon graveyard. Wang Xian's eyes were sparkling. He pushed open the door and walked out. Young master. The maidservant who had been waiting for instructions at the door saw him walking out and shouted hurriedly. Where is the second prince holding the banquet? Bring me there. Wang Xian said to the maidservant directly. Young master, the second prince's banquet is not held on this island. It's held by the sea outside. The maidservant said to him immediately. Not here. Wang Xian raised his eyebrows. Young master, let me bring you there. The maid looked at him. Wang Xian nodded and followed behind the maid as they walked out. When they walked out from the exit, the bloody smell outside made Wang Xian feel a little uncomfortable. It's in the building by the beach. There's a manor there. The second prince is hosting the banquet here today. As the maid spoke, she flew into the air and brought Wang Xian to the luxurious-looking manor by the sea. Although the buildings in the cemetery of the demi-human were messy, every building was extremely luxurious. Those who were able to establish a foothold here were no ordinary forces. Young master, you can just go in directly. I will be going back first. After sending Wang Xian to the entrance of the manor by the sea, the maid bowed to Wang Xian and left immediately. Wang Xian looked at the manor and walked straight in. He merely mentioned that he was invited by the second prince of the Guanglong dynasty, and the guards at the entrance let him in. It wasn't that the management wasn't strict, but that no one dared to impersonate the guest of the prince of the Guanglong dynasty. After entering the manor, he walked in under the guidance of the staff. This young master, you are in front. The waiter pointed to the front and retreated. Wang Xian looked over and revealed a look of surprise. In front of him, there were a total of 500 to 600 people sitting at a round table. A huge empty space was left in the middle. There was a 10-meter-tall bonfire in the middle. Young and middle-aged men were sitting around and chatting. Wang Xian swept his gaze over and realized that Long Xiaotian was nowhere to be seen. He looked at the empty seats and walked over directly. I saw the second prince walking in confidently to call his subordinates. I think the second prince's influence is definitely not weak. He should be very strong. The second prince is already a strong contender for the throne of the kingdom of Light Dragon. Only the first prince, the 8th prince and the 17th prince can compete with him. The rest of them are much weaker. I heard that in the first round of the assessment, the king of the kingdom of Light Dragon is most satisfied with the second prince. If the second prince's influence is stronger, we can consider joining the second prince and take a gamble. Wang Xian walked closer and heard the voices of the people in front of him talking. He swept his gaze around and found that most of them were above Transcendent Level 6. There were also more than 10 half-step void interpretation experts. Many of the young men were very strong. They must be young talents from various factions or even heaven's favorites. Wang Xian walked to the 2 empty seats and sat down. However, when Wang Xian landed, a gaze looked over and his gaze gradually turned cold. He stared at Wang Xian with hints of killing intent in his eyes. It's you. Xing Tianyi stared at Wang Xian and said coldly. Wang Xian was slightly stunned when he saw him. Then, he looked at the few people beside him. He was slightly surprised. It was true that enemies don't meet in the same place. Chapter 1194, Stay Here. There were a group of 8 people, no more or less. They were dressed exactly the same as when they were in the Dragon and Phoenix Royal City. The words 6 Elements Sect were written on their chests. There are more than 8 people. Wang Xian looked at the seat in front of him and saw 2 young men. One of them had a head of silver-white long hair. He looked elegant and exuded an otherworldly aura. The other one had a head of short hair. He sat there emotionlessly. Wang Xian saw that Xing Tianyi was staring at him coldly. He ignored him and sat on the seat in front of him. When Xing Tianyi saw that Wang Xian ignored him, a cold glint flashed in his eyes. He smiled slowly. His smile was filled with ferocious excitement. Kid, I didn't expect to meet you here. As Xing Tianyi spoke, he stood up slowly. He held a wine glass in his hand and stared at Wang Xian coldly. Ha! A few of Xing Tianyi's fellow disciples were slightly stunned when they saw him standing up. When they saw Wang Xian, their pupils constricted slightly before their faces turned cold. Bang! Enemies have a narrow road. A young man placed the wine cup in his hand on the table with a loud and clear sound. The other 7 people stared at Wang Xian coldly. Even the silver-haired young man and the short-haired young man in the innermost corner turned their heads to look at him. Tianyi, what's going on with the few of you? Don't cause trouble at the second prince's banquet. If there's a problem, we can settle it after the event. The silver-haired young man saw that some people were looking in his direction and said to Xing Tianyi indifferently. Senior brother, this guy is from the Dragon Phoenix dynasty. A few days ago, we went to the Dragon Phoenix dynasty with great difficulty, but we were chased out by him in the end. He also said that in their territory, no matter what identity we have to get lost. The moment the silver-haired young man finished his words, the only girl among the 8 of them immediately pouted and looked at him with an aggrieved expression. Is that so? The silver-haired young man narrowed his eyes slightly and swept his gaze across Wang Xian. He didn't say anything. Seeing that their senior brother didn't say anything, the corners of Xing Tianyi and the others' lips curled up slightly. How did a little brat from the Dragon and Phoenix Empire get into this place? Is this a place where you can come? The young man sitting in the middle stood up from his seat and walked slowly to Wang Xian's side. He looked down at him and asked coldly. Wang Xian saw the 2 of them standing in front of him. Their eyes were filled with killing intent as they stared at him. He frowned slightly. What does it have to do with you guys that I can come here? He looked at the people from the 6 Elements sect and said faintly. What does it have to do with us? But I want to tell you that this manor is the property of our 6 Elements sect. Hee, kid, this is our territory. This is not your Dragon and Phoenix dynasty. Xing Tianyi stared at him with a cold face and said slowly. Your territory? But I was invited here. Could it be that you can chase me away? Wang Xian smiled faintly. The 6 Elements sect was a powerful sect in the Luhai region. However, their strength was still 1 level away from the Light Dragon Empire. He didn't believe that a 6 Elements sect would dare to chase him away when the second prince invited him over. He sat there calmly without a hint of panic in his eyes. When Xing Tianyi and the rest heard Wang Xian's words, they frowned slightly. Clearly, they had some misgivings in their hearts. A disciple of our 6 Elements sect went to a small country and was chased out by someone. This is a joke. Suddenly, the silver-haired young man who was sitting inside looked at Wang Xian and smiled. However, if someone really dared to do this, our 6 Elements sect will naturally not let this go. Our 6 Elements sect is extremely hospitable. We will not chase them away. Instead, we will leave them here. This is a place with good feng shui. The silver-haired young man said while looking at Wang Xian with a smile on his face. He then looked at the few disciples beside him and said, Leave the second prince to me. Oh? Thank you, senior brother. Thank you, senior brother. A hint of excitement flashed across the faces of the few young men. Their senior brother was ranked 20th in the Luhai region. The second prince had invited them here mainly for their senior brother. Not only the second prince, but the other princes of the Light Dragon dynasty had also invited their senior brother to join them a few days ago. As the 6 Elements sect, which did not belong to any dynasty, they were the targets of many dynasties. If their senior brother spoke to the second prince would definitely not say anything. When they heard their senior brother's words, all of them stared at Wang Xian with ferocious expressions. Kid, do you know what the price is for coming to our territory? When you were in the Dragon and Phoenix Royal City, you dared to injure junior brother Xing Tianyi. Have you thought about the consequences? The young man standing beside Wang Xian had a mocking expression on his face as he stared at Wang Xian and said slowly. When Wang Xian saw the expressions on everyone's faces, his expression turned cold as well. I really haven't thought about the consequences of dealing with a few good-for-nothings. You're courting death. Xing Tianyi shouted softly as he stared at Wang Xian with a ferocious expression. You're about to die, yet you still dare to be so arrogant. This isn't your tiny country. If you dare to offend us, you shall stay here today. He he. After Xing Tianyi finished his sentence, the other young men stood up slowly as well. Their auras locked onto him. Ha! What's going on? It's someone from the Six Elements sect. Who is the young man they are targeting? Why haven't I seen him before? I haven't seen him before. However, he must have been invited by the second prince. If the people from the Six Elements sect are targeting him like this, wouldn't that be a slap to the second prince's face? That won't happen. Yin Xian Feng of the Six Elements sect is currently being courted by several princes. The second prince should give the Six Elements sect some face. Xing Tianyi's shout caused the surrounding people to reveal curious expressions as they discussed in a low voice. It's him. At this moment, two men and women in green robes were sitting across from him. That young man raised his brows slightly as an expression of surprise appeared on his face. Oh? It really is? The girl next to him looked over and nodded slightly. They had an impression of this young man. Not long after, they had attended the auction of the Dragon and Phoenix dynasty together with their teacher, and happened to see him making a move in the restaurant. At that time, his strength had slightly surprised even their teacher. However, he was a bloodline cultivator, so they didn't take him seriously. Big brother Su Wenling, do you and Miss Sasa know this young man? A young man heard their conversation and curiously looked ahead. Yes, he's a disciple who just established a small country. His strength is not bad, but unfortunately, he's a bloodline cultivator. Su Wenling lightly nodded and said indifferently. There is a limit to the cultivation path of bloodline cultivators, and there are very few high-level bloodlines. Their future is limited. The young man next to him heard his words and lightly shook his head. Chapter 1195, Stay Here. For many people, the bloodline of a fierce beast or demon beast was like a treasure. However, in the eyes of some outstanding disciples, bloodline cultivators were not enough. This was because the bloodline had a limit. For example, if one had the bloodline of a demon beast at the profound void tier, they could only cultivate to the profound void tier at most. In the eyes of many people, an expert of the first level of the profound void tier was only within reach. However, in the eyes of these proud children, it was nothing more than this. This was because they pursued a higher realm. I wonder how he received the invitation from the second prince. The girl called Sa Sa looked ahead and said with a smile. It's very normal for him to be invited with his strength. However, he should be out of luck. The second prince will not blame Yin Xian Feng and the others of the Six Elements sect for the sake of a bloodline warrior. Su Wenling said lightly. The other princes of the Light Dragon dynasty are trying to rope in Yin Xian Feng. The second prince's main target today is not only Yin Xian Feng, but also big brother Su Wenling. Also, judging from the second prince's attitude just now, he wants to rope in you. The young man at the side said with some flattery. Su Wenling smiled proudly and slightly raised his head. I'm looking forward to the strength the second prince will show next. As he spoke, he took a small sip and looked at everyone in the banquet hall with a smile. As a Heaven's Pride expert who ranked higher than Yin Xian Feng on the prodigy roll, he was one of the most outstanding disciples of the Divine Wind Academy. His family background was not very good, but it was precisely because of this that he was the object of contention among all the major factions. At this banquet, the second prince clearly valued him the most. Sitting here, he had a feeling that he was watching the storm with a smile. You want me to stay here? In the banquet hall, Wang Xian sat there and watched the people from the Six Elements sect staring at him coldly. A hint of killing intent flashed in his eyes. By leaving him here, it meant that they clearly had an opinion and wanted to kill him. With just you guys, you don't have the ability. Wang Xian stood up abruptly and looked at all of them. Brat, you still dare to be so arrogant even now. Let me tell you, in the territory of our Six Elements sect, you won't be able to escape even if you have wings. In the Dragon Phoenix Royal City, you dared to chase us out. Today, I will make you pay the price. A young man pointed his finger at Wang Xian. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Buzz! The moment he stretched out his hand and pointed at Wang Xian, he started to move. He waved his arm and a stream of water shot towards the 8 people in front of him. You still dare to make a move? When Xing Tian saw Wang Xian making a move instantly, he revealed an embarrassed expression. Not good. However, as they felt the terrifying impact of the stream of water in front of them, the expressions of Xing Tian and the rest changed drastically. Be careful, his strength should be at the half-step void interpretation realm. A young man shouted loudly when he recalled how Wang Xian had instantly killed a level 9 Hule leopard in Dragon Phoenix Royal City. The few of them trembled and hurriedly defended themselves. However, it was too late. The water currents struck the 8 of them. Their defenses were like thin paper and were easily broken through. A powerful force directly crashed into his body. Pang pang pang. Poo poo. In an instant, the 8 people spat out blood and flew backward. What? This young man is so powerful. He dares to directly attack the second prince's banquet. This young man is too arrogant. He directly injured a disciple of the Six Elements sect. Is he going to make an enemy out of the Six Elements sect? Everyone around was slightly shocked as they looked over in astonishment. Paw! At this moment, Yin Xianfeng, who was sitting at the side, had a slight change in expression. His eyes turned cold instantly. His hand landed heavily on the table. A silver-white longsword appeared in his hand. Hua! The sound of a sharp sword being unsheathed rang out. The sharp longsword slashed towards Wang Xian's position. You're courting death. His eyes revealed an icy look. The temperature around him instantly dropped by dozens of degrees. An extremely cold longsword stabbed directly at him. You're the ones who are courting death. Wang Xian watched the longsword coming at him. His expression didn't change as he waved his arm gently. Bang! The cold glow of the longsword melted immediately. Wang Xian waved his arm again. A golden stream of light swept directly at his arm. Go to hell! When Yin Xianfeng saw that Wang Xian easily blocked his attack, his pupils constricted slightly and his aura trembled. Crack! 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 The sound of cracking could be heard from the surroundings. On the table, one cup after another was shattered by the bone-piercing cold air, producing a crisp sound. The surrounding ground slowly turned snow-white. Retreat, get out of their battle range. Hiss, that young man's strength is so strong. He should be at the half-step void interpretation realm. That young man is so arrogant. This villa is the property of the Six Elements sect. There are experts from the Six Elements sect here. If he dares to attack Yin Xianfeng and the rest here, isn't he courting death? The second prince is trying to rope in Yin Xianfeng. Even if that young man was invited by the second prince, given the current situation, the second prince will definitely stand on the side of the Six Elements sect. After all, if he helps that young man, it would be a bad relationship with the Six Elements sect. When the people around saw Wang Xian making a move, they were astonished. Those who were close to him quickly retreated into the distance. You dare to fight with me, Yin Xianfeng. You dare to make a move in the territory of our Six Elements sect. Today, Yin Xianfeng will definitely kill you. When Yin Xianfeng saw the beam of golden light that was attacking him, a fierce glint flashed in his eyes. He waved the longsword in his hand. The air around him seemed to have solidified as a faint white glow rose out of thin air. It was like a silver-white longsword that could penetrate through everything as it slashed towards the golden light. Humph! Wang Xian looked at Yin Xianfeng's attack with a hint of disdain in his eyes. The golden light was a combination attack. The golden flow could be compared to his single attribute attack and his ordinary attack in the form of the divine dragon. If Yin Xianfeng did not use his divine ability to resist, he would be courting death. Crack! 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 The silvery white longsword that was accompanied by an icy glow slashed onto the golden flow. Suddenly, the surrounding ice emitted a cracking sound. The golden glow swept towards him. What? Yin Xianfeng was slightly shocked. His expression changed drastically. His entire body trembled as layers of ice armor covered his body. Extremely hot water sea. Wang Xian saw his defense and waved his arm. A wave of seawater that was emitting a terrifying high temperature landed on Yin Xianfeng's body faster than the golden current. Ah! The moment the extremely hot water sea landed on his body, Yin Xianfeng let out a scream. The ice armor on his body melted at a terrifying speed. The golden current landed on his arm that was holding the long sword. The golden stream and the fire and metal elements combined to attack. A stream of light contained a terrifying attack. When the golden stream swept past, Yin Xianfeng's arm disappeared. Chapter 1196, The Second Prince of was furious. My arm! A scream sounded in the banquet hall. Yin Xianfeng stared at his right hand with a face full of fear. So what if it was empty? When the golden light swept past, the arm immediately dissipated. This! He widened his eyes, a trace of shock and malevolence flashed in his eyes. In the surroundings, all the sounds instantly stopped. 400 to 500 people looked on with faces full of shock. This, what terrifying strength! Yin Xianfeng is ranked 20th among the heaven's favorites. How could he be defeated so easily? Hiss, he injured 8 disciples of the Six Elements sect in one move. Now, he defeated Yin Xianfeng in 2 moves. Where did he come from? Why haven't I heard of him before? No wonder he was invited by the second prince. His strength can already be ranked on the heaven's favorites list. Everyone's eyes widened as they stared at Wang Xian and Yin Xianfeng, exclaiming in surprise. The strength that Wang Xian displayed was too strong. His strength is something that even Su Wenling can't match up to, right? A young man looked at Wang Xian who was standing there with an indifferent expression and said heavily. When everyone in the banquet heard his words, they nodded their heads slightly. Su Wenling was ranked 18th on the prodigy roll, but the strength displayed by the young man was definitely stronger than his. Humph, he's just a bloodline cultivator. After all, there's a limit. When Su Wenling heard this, his face slightly displeased as he lightly snorted and coldly said. Bloodline cultivator? He's a bloodline cultivator. The surrounding people were slightly stunned as they came to a sudden realization. No wonder, from their conversation just now, that young man came from a weak country. He shouldn't have such terrifying strength. So he's a bloodline cultivator. I don't know what level of bloodline he has, but that young man might be in trouble. Some people looked at Yin Xianfeng, whose arm had disappeared. Yin Xianfeng's face was extremely ferocious, and his eyes were full of killing intent. They knew that this matter would not be resolved so easily. In the territory of the Six Elements sect, they had severely injured their disciple and wiped out one of their most outstanding disciples. Call the elders in the villa over. Suddenly, a cold voice sounded. The short-haired young man who had been sitting beside Yin Xianfeng stood up and stared at Wang Xian with a grave expression. You hurt people in the territory of our Six Elements sect. You don't put us in your eyes. The short-haired young man looked at Wang Xian expressionlessly and said in a deep voice. Hee, if the people of your Six Elements sect want to kill me, would I put you in my eyes? Wang Xian revealed a mocking look in his eyes as he walked towards them slowly. The short-haired young man narrowed his eyes slightly as he looked at Wang Xian. Hua hua hua. Who dares to cause trouble in the territory of our Six Elements sect? At this moment, a cold voice covered the entire area. The sound of footsteps was heard. Everyone was slightly shocked as they quickly looked forward. A middle-aged man was holding a long spear in his hand as he flew towards them with a cold expression. Below them, 20 to 30 disciples of the Six Elements sect were holding weapons in their hands as they walked towards them aggressively. Void Interpretation Expert. When they saw the middle-aged man in the sky, everyone's gaze froze slightly. Elder, it's this guy. It's this guy. Not only did he heavily injure us, but he also crippled one of senior brother Yin's arms. Elder, you have to avenge us. A young man who was lying on the ground shouted at the middle-aged man in the sky with a pale face. He pointed at Wang Xian and his eyes were filled with killing intent. Ha! The middle-aged man swept his gaze across the area. When his gaze landed on Yin Xianfeng, his expression slowly turned cold as he stared at Wang Xian. It has been a long time since someone dared to cause trouble in the territory of our Six Elements sect. The middle-aged man looked at Wang Xian and spoke slowly. He. Wang Xian stared at the middle-aged man who was floating in the air and sneered. Hua hua hua. At this moment, a group of disciples under the middle-aged elder of the Six Elements sect came to Wang Xian's side. They surrounded him and locked onto him with a murderous aura. Wang Xian's expression did not change. He clenched his fists slightly. He was not afraid of an expert at the first level of the see-through realm. He was so agitated that he fled after a round of slaughter. Boom! 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 What happened? Just as the atmosphere froze and was about to explode at any moment, a slight tremor came from the ground in the distance. The second prince's voice rang out. The second prince is here. Everyone looked over. Even the people from the Six Elements sect turned their heads over. Hiss, what's that? All of the second prince's subordinates have mounts, and they are all powerful black shadow leopards. There are 4 half-step void interpretation experts, and around 10 transcendents at level 9. These people are stronger than the first prince and the 8th prince's subordinates, but the most terrifying thing is that the second prince actually got so many mounts. This almost doubled the second prince's power. The black shadow leopard the second prince is riding is at half-step void interpretation. Hiss, is this the second prince's power? It is definitely the strongest among all the princes. When everyone saw the second prince riding the black shadow leopard and rushing over with his subordinates, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. They were extremely shocked by the second prince's power. Even Su Wenling's face was full of shock. Prince Long Xiaotian. The Six Elements sex elder who was floating in the sky landed on the ground and greeted the second prince. Second prince. The rest of the people also stood up and shouted with flickering eyes. Ha! What's going on? Long Xiaotian could feel the frozen atmosphere around him. He frowned and asked with a hint of killing intent. Second prince, this kid injured my arm and severely injured my junior brothers. Today, I want to keep him here. When Yin Xianfeng saw the second prince, his expression was still ferocious. He pointed at Wang Xian and shouted loudly. Oh? Brother Yin Xianfeng, who dares to? Long Xiaotian raised his eyebrows and looked over. However, when he was halfway through his sentence, he was stunned and looked at Wang Xian in astonishment. In an instant, his expression changed. His body moved and he jumped down from the black shadow leopard. He quickly walked to Wang Xian's side. Brother Wang Xian, are you all right? What happened? He walked to Wang Xian's side with a sullen face and asked hurriedly. The second prince suddenly walked towards Wang Xian, causing everyone to be slightly stunned. They looked at this scene in astonishment. I'm fine. I have some enmity with them. They want to keep me here. When Wang Xian saw Long Xiaotian walking over, a smile appeared on his face. Keep me here? When Long Xiaotian heard Wang Xian's words, his face turned cold instantly. He wanted to keep Wang Xian here. Moreover, it was happening in his banquet hall. This made Long Xiaotian extremely embarrassed. Who was Wang Xian? He was Win Salt Town's savior, Long Xiaotian's lucky star, and the thigh that he swore to hug. Now, there was actually someone in his banquet hall who wanted to keep this thigh of his? Chapter 1197, Under the Rage of Prince No. He, Long Xiaotian, held this banquet mainly for the purpose of roping in some heaven's favored sons and some powerful subordinates. However, if he offended Wang Xian because of this banquet, then this banquet wouldn't be worth it at all. In his opinion, even if all the people present surrendered to his subordinates, they wouldn't be as important as Wang Xian. Putting aside the powerful alchemy master, his unbelievable beast-taming ability was simply heaven-defying. Long Xiaotian had already fantasized about it for the past 2 days. When he got to know Wang Xian better, he would ask him to train a batch of ferocious beasts for him. When the time came, he would build a strong cavalry battle team which could almost rival the top battle team of the Guanlong Kingdom. When he thought of this, he couldn't help but grin while he was sleeping. Now, Yin Xianfeng and the people of the Six Elements sect wanted to keep him here. Long Xiaotian didn't need to think to know the meaning of staying. He looked at Yin Xianfeng with a gloomy face. Yin Xianfeng was slightly stunned when he saw Long Xiaotian's expression, but he didn't think too much about it. Second Prince, we must give an explanation for his contempt for our Six Elements sect today. As he spoke, he looked at the middle-aged elder at the side. He dared to seriously injure our disciple in our Six Elements sect's territory. If we don't kill him, he really thinks that our Six Elements sect is easy to bully. The elder of the Six Elements sect said slowly with an expressionless face. Brother, today, this is the banquet venue of our Light Dragon Dynasty's second prince. As soon as the middle-aged elder of the Six Elements sect finished speaking, Bai Qingshan, who was wearing a white robe, slowly walked out and stared at him as he said faintly. Ha! The middle-aged elder of the Six Elements sect was slightly stunned as he looked at Bai Qingshan in surprise. Yin Xianfeng, do you know that he is a friend that I personally invited to the banquet that I'm holding here today? You want to fucking keep the person that I invited? Are you courting death? At this moment, Long Xiaotian's mouth suddenly burst out words that stunned everyone. Bang! However, what shocked everyone even more was that his figure moved and his fist landed heavily on Yin Xianfeng's face. In an instant, Yin Xianfeng was completely dumbfounded. He did not expect that the second prince would actually attack him. He was the target that all the princes of the Light Dragon Dynasty had been fighting to recruit, but now, the second prince had directly attacked him without giving him any face. The powerful force caused his face to twist slightly, and his head to be in a daze. This force was not small at all. His arm had already been chopped off, and he was even sent flying backward, flying more than 10 meters away. Bang! His body landed heavily on the ground. Everyone was stunned. The second prince actually beat up Yin Xianfeng? This. You don't know whether you're dead or alive. If I find out that you're secretly dealing with brother Wang Xian in the future, be careful of your dog life. Long Xiaotian didn't give him any face and said directly. Yin Xianfeng, who was knocked to the ground, spat out a mouthful of blood when he heard his words. This. Everyone from the Six Elements sect gulped and looked at the elder. The middle-aged elder from the Six Elements sect slowly frowned. He looked at the white-robed void interpretation expert who was staring at him with a smile on his face, and then at the second prince who had an icy expression on his face. His expression was somewhat awkward. He knew that the disciples of Yin Xianfeng had provoked the wrong person this time. That young man was obviously highly valued by the second prince. He didn't even give the Six Elements sect any face. Phew! The middle-aged elder of the Six Elements sect took a deep breath and said, Second Prince, it's our Six Elements sect's fault for this matter. I'm here to apologize to you. I hope you won't be angry. As he spoke, he cupped his hands slightly. The Six Elements sect couldn't afford to offend the Light Dragon Empire. There was a high chance that the second prince in front of them would become the king of the Light Dragon Empire. They could not afford to offend him. Therefore, they could only apologize. The people who were invited by the second prince also took a deep breath. Their eyes landed on Wang Xian. Who is he exactly? How could he make the second prince want to help him vent his anger by offending the Six Elements sect? Some people thought to themselves. Please take the people of your Six Elements sect away. Long Xiaotian looked at the elders of the Six Elements sect with a sullen face and said directly. Yes, our Six Elements sect will waive the expenses for this banquet. Consider it as an apology to the second prince. The middle-aged elder of the Six Elements sect squeezed out a smile and said. Long Xiaotian ignored him and walked directly to Wang Xian's side. A hint of bitterness appeared on his face. Brother Wang Xian, did I disturb your mood? No, it's fine. I might have disturbed your business. Wang Xian looked at the disciples of the Six Elements sect who were carried away and shook his head. How can that be? It's my fault for not entertaining them properly. Come, come. Long Xiaotian heaved a sigh of relief and gestured for Wang Xian to take a seat at the side. He looked around and cupped his hands. Everyone, I'm really sorry for not entertaining them properly. I didn't expect some unpleasant things to happen in the short period of time that I was away. Everyone, I'm sorry. Let me introduce to everyone. These 56 people are my brothers who followed me. Long Xiaotian was obviously very good at dealing with situations. In just a few short sentences, he skipped over the previous incident and introduced his subordinates. He didn't introduce Wang Xian because he had his own selfish motives. He didn't want his brothers to know that if they knew that Wang Xian was a powerful beast tamer, they might invite him with a huge sum of money. His relationship with Wang Xian wasn't that deep yet. He was afraid that the man whom he had finally met would run away. Wang Xian didn't mind either. He sat at the side and watched with a smile. However, at this moment, everyone paid a lot of attention to the young man who caused the second prince to fall out with the Six Elements sect. How can a bloodline cultivator be so important to the second prince? How is this possible? Sitting opposite him, Su Wenling looked at Wang Xian, who was sitting next to the second prince, with a gloomy face. After seeing the second prince's strength, Su Wenling had already decided to join him and take a gamble. Just now, the second prince was sitting next to him and spoke with great sincerity to rope him in. But now, the second prince was sitting next to a bloodline cultivator, and he even whispered to him from time to time. Obviously, he didn't want to be ignored. What kind of treatment did this young man have? Su Wenling was extremely depressed, and sat there without saying a word with an embarrassed expression. The second prince, Long Xiaotian, and that kid. At this moment, in a room in the villa, Yin Xianfeng was sitting on the bed with a ferocious expression, holding his arm and growling. Don't do stupid things. Long Xiaotian is not someone you can provoke. The short-haired young man saw his expression and reminded him coldly. I'm not reconciled. No matter what, I, Yin Xianfeng, am a favored son of heaven. Long Xiaotian is not giving me face. Yin Xianfeng's expression changed drastically, and then he narrowed his eyes like a poisonous snake. The eighth prince and the second prince have never been on good terms. Today's humiliation, I'll make sure you never get the throne. With the eighth prince around, even if I find an opportunity to kill that kid, the second prince can't do anything to me. Chapter 1198, Female Sword Cultivator. The second prince's banquet slowly came to an end. The people who came to attend the banquet today were filled with shock. They were shocked by the second prince's powerful strength and the young man who caused the second prince to turn against the Six Elements sect. But no matter what, the entire banquet went very smoothly. After seeing the second prince's power, many people were extremely moved. The powerful beast's mounts were beyond everyone's expectations. Brother Wang Xian, I'm really sorry about today. It's alright. Brother Long Xiaotian, if you need to refine elixirs in the future, you can come and look for me. It's still the same price. Wang Xian walked out from the villa of the banquet. He and Long Xiaotian walked out side by side and chatted. Of course, that. Long Xiaotian laughed out loud. After hesitating for a moment, he said, Brother Wang Xian, you should know that I'm competing for the position of the crown prince now. I won't hide it from you. Brother Wang Xian, can you help me tame some ferocious beasts in the future? Brother, don't worry. I'll definitely give you a lot of spirit stones. As he spoke, he looked at Wang Xian expectantly. Sure, no problem. Wang Xian agreed without a second thought. Taming ferocious beasts was very easy for him. Naturally, he would be very happy to use the ferocious beasts to exchange for the spiritual liquid. Alright. Thank you, Brother Wang Xian. If I can reach the top in the future, I will definitely repay you well. Long Xiaotian nodded excitedly when he heard his agreement. He could not help but laugh out loud. What is the relationship between the second prince and that young man? Why are they so close? Why do I feel that the second prince is trying to curry favor with that young man on purpose? He even poured wine for him during the banquet. Could it be that this young man's background is not simple? He is very strong and can be ranked on the prodigy roll. At the back, the people who were attending the banquet were watching in astonishment as they discussed in low voices. Oh right, Brother Long Xiaotian, please help me find a place to stay. It would be best if it's a secluded and isolated courtyard. Wang Xian and Long Xiaotian were flying in the sky. After thinking for a while, they spoke to him. What's wrong, brother? Isn't it good for you to stay at our place? Long Xiaotian was stunned for a moment before he replied hurriedly. It's a little inconvenient. I like to live alone and I might have to stay here for the next period of time. Therefore, I want to find a place to live alone. Wang Xian shook his head and explained immediately. Then, Brother Wang Xian, please wait for a moment. I will get someone to find a place for you to live alone immediately. Long Xiaotian nodded his head slightly. He immediately sent a few messages through the communication stone plate. What Wang Xian did not expect was that when they had just returned to the island of the Guanglong dynasty, the place he wanted had already been found. Second Prince, there is a suitable house in the pine poplar forest. We have already bought it. An old man came forward and reported to Long Xiaotian. Pine and poplar forest? Sure. That place is not bad. Brother Wang Xian, I will bring you there to take a look immediately. Long Xiaotian nodded his head in satisfaction. Alright, sorry to trouble you. If you need anything in the future, contact me through the communication stone plate. I will definitely not decline if I can help you. Wang Xian promised Long Xiaotian when he saw how helpful he was. After knowing Long Xiaotian for the past few days, Wang Xian was very satisfied with his character and actions. In addition, his personality was very appetizing. Wang Xian did not mind making him a friend. Since they were friends, Wang Xian would definitely not be stingy if he could help. Alright. Brother Wang Xian, if you have any matters here, feel free to look for me. I, Long Xiaotian, will definitely not decline. Long Xiaotian patted his chest excitedly when he heard Wang Xian's words. Wang Xian smiled. Under the lead of the old man, the two of them flew towards the location in front of them. Second Prince, this young master, this is the place. Pine and poplar forest. This is the construction of the Snow Moon Empire. It can be considered a better place to stay in the cemetery of the human and demon. The few of them came to the front of a patch of forest. It was different from the forest in the cemetery of the human and demon. It was a type of green tree that emitted a faint fragrance. Below them was a group of courtyards with about 100 rooms. The old man brought them to the front of a courtyard and took out the key to open the door. The environment in the small courtyard was elegant and very beautiful. A pine and poplar tree that was more than 10 meters tall covered more than half of the courtyard. The courtyard was very large. There were 5 to 6 houses and some ordinary spiritual herbs were planted at the entrance. There was a small river around the courtyard. There were some fish swimming in it. Wang Xian was very satisfied after taking a look. Thank you, Brother Long Xiaotian. I'll stay here tonight. Wang Xian said directly. Alright. Brother Wang Xian, if you need anything, you can come and look for me. Long Xiaotian nodded. Following that, they returned to the island of the Guanglong dynasty. Wang Xian rode the spirit Zilin back. The surrounding environment of the pine and poplar forest was very good. There was an empty space in front of the courtyard, and there were also courtyards nearby. Those who could live here were not ordinary members of the mercenary group. Wang Xian opened the door and entered. The spirit Zilin strolled around in the courtyard. Wang Xian ignored it. He walked into the room and took a look. He took out Long Xiaotian's communication stone plate and began to check out the situation of the cemetery of the human and demon. His original purpose of coming to the tomb of the human demon was to obtain a large amount of spiritual liquid. Now, it was time for him to take action. The training ground of the Bloodstream sect, the training ground of the Bloodstream sect, the main hall of the Bloodstream sect, and the Heaven's Pride stage of the Bloodstream sect. Wang Xian looked at the most important places in the tomb of the human demon. He was deep in thought as he thought about which place to go first. Wah 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 wah. Roar! 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 Just as Wang Xian was looking through the documents, he heard a roar from the side. He was slightly stunned as he looked over quickly. Beside the wall, Ling Zilin was biting a small demonic beast cub. This little guy was like a dog. He had a black and white face with a white dot between his eyebrows. Whoa! The demonic beast cub was bitten by Ling Zilin, and it let out a painful cry. Wang Xian was slightly stunned. Where did this demonic beast cub come from? Xiao Ha! At this moment, a woman suddenly jumped onto the wall. When she saw Ling Zilin biting her pet, her expression changed drastically. She moved her arm and a long sword appeared in her hand. A sharp light pointed straight at Ling Zilin. Put Xiao Ha down. Roar! Ling Zilin saw a woman attacking it and a cold look appeared in his eyes. He let out a low roar and a ferocious aura was emitted slowly. Zilin, let go. Wang Xian looked over and ordered Ling Zilin. He looked at the woman and said, "Beauty, this is my home. Take care of your pet. Otherwise, it will be eaten by my mount. Take good care of your pet too. Don't let it run past the yard." The lady's entire body was extremely cold. She was like a sharp longsword as she spoke to Wang Xian coldly. Wah. The demonic beast cub that came out of Ling Zilin's mouth ran into the lady's arms and cried out in grievance. Chapter 1199, Dongshu Mansion. My pet is very obedient. Wang Xian looked at the lady's cold expression and said faintly. Humph. The lady snorted coldly. She took a glance at the Ling Zilin and jumped down from the wall. Wang Xian shook his head. He didn't take this arrogant, cold, and unreasonable lady to heart. Let's go to the tomb of the transvestite. The sky had already turned dark. Wang Xian didn't take it to heart and walked out directly. In the territory of the cemetery of demi-humans and demons, there was no distinction between day and night. To the strong ones, the dark night couldn't obstruct their vision. Wang Xian let Ling Zilin lie in the courtyard. His body moved and he flew out. At night, there were at least 100,000 people flying in the sky. They were densely packed. Wang Xian could even see that there were more than 10 people fighting in the sky. Furthermore, they were fighting with their lives on the line. As expected of the graveyard of demons and men. There is no order at all. The strong ones can kill whoever they want here. Wang Xian thought to himself as he headed straight for the center of the human territory. There was a huge building there. This building was the largest in this area and was very eye-catching. That was the Demon Hunter Mercenary Association. This Demon Hunter Mercenary Association was definitely the largest mercenary association in the entire Luhai region. It was jointly established by all the dynasties and mercenary associations in the Luhai region thousands of years ago. The entire mercenary association could hold at least 100,000 people without appearing crowded. Wang Xian flew over and looked around. There were two more eye-catching shops around the mercenary association, the Life and Death Pill Workshop and the Holy Item Forging Workshop. These two behemoths occupied a very good position. Wang Xian entered the Demon Hunters Association. There were many people there. There were people who received missions, commissions, and members of the mercenary group. Wang Xian glanced around and walked to the front of the service counter. I accept the mission to hunt demonic beasts. Currently, the Fairy Phoenix Demon Hunters Association was a 2-star gold mercenary group. Every time the mercenary group leveled up, he would receive a reward from the system. Therefore, Wang Xian was prepared to accept some missions. The mission of hunting demonic beasts was a mission that all mercenary groups would accept. There was no commission for this mission, but there were a lot of mission points. Hello, young master. This is the demon spirit token. Every time you kill a demonic beast, the demon spirit sect will record it automatically. The more demonic beasts you kill, the more points you will receive. At the same time, there is a ranking list of demon beasts killed in the demon spirit sect to show the strength of your demon hunter team. The staff member passed a token to him. Wang Xian took it and looked at the demon spirit sect. The Blood Flow God sect's mercenary team killed 3,252 demon beasts. Wang Xian looked at the number 1 mercenary team with a hint of surprise on his face. However, following that, Wang Xian kept it and looked at the mission list. The top-ranked 3-star epic-level mission was to kill the king of the blood barbarians, Oakley. The reward was 10 cities, an honorary prince of the Blood Flow Empire, and 10 billion upper-grade spirit stones. The top 5 missions were all epic-level missions. All of them were to kill the king of the demonic beasts in the human-demon graveyard. Wang Xian looked down. There were all kinds of missions. He took a look. There are so many missions to collect the pets of demonic beasts and ferocious beasts. The commission is also quite high. Wang Xian looked at the dozens of missions in a row and made a mental note in his heart. He did not accept them. After looking at them, he walked out. According to the information Long Xiaotian gave me, the 4 great trial grounds are one place to obtain the spiritual liquid. In addition, there is also the mansion left behind by the insightful Emptiness Realm experts. Wang Xian flew into the sky and headed south according to the information Long Xiaotian gave him. To the east was the ocean, and to the west was the forest. In front of him was the ruins of the Bloodstream sect, the real battlefield of the cemetery of human and demon. Humans occupied the north, demonic beasts occupied the south, and the cemetery of human and demon was sandwiched in the middle. Suspended in the sky, under the moonlight, the ocean on the right was slightly red, like a huge blood pool. The trees on the left were hundreds of meters tall, towering into the sky. Wang Xian looked ahead and saw dilapidated buildings appearing in his line of sight. After flying for more than 10 minutes, mountain peaks appeared in front of him. The mountain peaks were located in the middle of the forest, and many of the mountain peaks were filled with dilapidated buildings. We're here. Before he could get close to the mountain peaks from afar, Wang Xian could feel a murderous aura. His heart skipped a beat and he immediately landed on the ground. In the real battlefield of the human-demon graveyard, very few people dared to fly. This was because once one entered this place, one could be ambushed by ferocious beasts or demon beasts at any time. There were many demon beasts here. Almost 50% of the demon beasts in the Flowing Sea region were here. According to human speculation, there were at least hundreds of thousands of demon beasts in the nest of the demon beasts in the south. Just like humans, they established tribes and races. In order to increase their strength and increase the strength of their races, they entered this place to hunt humans. Wang Xian landed on the ground. The ground was even redder than where he came from and emitted a strong bloody smell. The ground was extremely sturdy. It was obvious that it had been struck by a terrifying force. Wang Xian scanned his surroundings and noticed that there were a few people looking at him from not far away. His eyes were flickering. In the tomb of the human-demon race, not only do I have to be careful of demonic beasts, I also have to be careful of my own kind. Killing and snatching treasures, killing one's own kind, these were the bad roots of humans. Wang Xian did not bother about those few people. He took out the map and flew straight ahead. The entire tomb of the human demon race occupied the territory of the forest and the ocean. It had an area of about 2,000 to 3,000 kilometers. It was extremely huge. In this area, there were over 1,000 mansions of void interpretation experts. Most of them had been hollowed out. However, there were still some mansions of void interpretation experts. Due to the chaotic formation, no one was able to enter. Wang Xian's first target was those mansions of void interpretation experts. The chaotic formation was a formation. After a few thousand years, the collapse of the mansions of void interpretation experts caused the formation to intersect. Some of the formations dissipated immediately, but some of the formations intersected by chance, forming a more complicated formation. It was like clothes that were messed up. Countless warriors wanted to break the formation and enter the Dongshu mansion that was covered by the chaotic formation. Wang Xian's first target was there because of his supernatural ability, no formation. No formation, no formation. Opening his dragon eyes of light and dark fire, Wang Xian scanned his surroundings and dashed forward quickly. He didn't fly. Only experts at the 4th or 5th level of the Dongshu were fearless here. Those below the 4th level of the Dongshu were more low-key. Up ahead is the mansion of the Bloodstream sect's ancient adage. It is now covered by a chaotic formation. After dashing for about half an hour, he met dozens of groups of people along the way. Looking ahead, Wang Xian looked at a mountain peak that was 100 meters in size. The mountain peak was not big. It was not even as tall as the surrounding trees. However, there was a mansion of a powerhouse here. Chapter 1200, entered easily. Phew, let's go. There's no way to break the formation inside. On the contrary, we almost died inside. A formation at the insightful void level coupled with the residual energy of the mineral vein underground, it's impossible to break it by force. Even a formation master wouldn't be able to break such a chaotic formation. A formation that can remain here for thousands of years is indeed not something that we can break. Wang Xian approached the mansion of the former Bloodstream sect's ancient proverb expert. 5 to 6 middle-aged elders walked out from the mansion and shook their heads helplessly. When they saw Wang Xian, they glanced at him and ignored him. They left immediately. Looks like there are quite a number of people here. Wang Xian looked over. When he walked over, he noticed that there were 400 to 500 people around him. Among this group of people, the weakest one was at level 7 of the supernatural realm. The mountain peak covered an area of about 1 kilometer. The entire mountain peak was flashing with a blue light. Wang Xian looked over and realized that the power of the formation had completely blocked his light and dark fire dragon eyes. When Wang Xian got closer, the surroundings of the mountain peak were in a mess. A few large holes had been dug into the ground. It was so deep that one could not see the bottom. Clearly, someone wanted to burrow in from the ground. The surrounding trees had long been destroyed. A group of people surrounded the mountain peak and tried to enter from all sorts of places. In the center, there was an entrance with the words Ancient Proverb Mansion written on it. At the entrance, there was a strong wave of water energy. Several middle-aged men tried to enter, but they were instantly ejected. There was also a group of people standing there to break the array. Buzz! 3 layers have been broken, and there are 5 more. At this moment, an excited voice came from the entrance. Hiss, Master Huazhenzi from the Spirit Array sect has broken through 3 layers. What great strength! The Spirit Array sect has broken through 7 or 8 of the Void Interpretation Experts' mansions here. Their gains are simply heaven-defying. This ancient proverb's mansions might really have been broken by them. It's possible. If I remember correctly, Master Huazhenzi used only half a month to crack 3 layers of the formation. Discussions could be heard from the surroundings. Some people's eyes were flickering. However, When they saw more than a dozen people from the Spirit Formation sect standing around, and there were even experts at the first level of the Voidwalkers, the greed in their eyes was hidden. Wang Xian looked over. An old man was holding a formation compass in his hand as he continued to crack the chaotic formation. It was obvious that he had already entered the formation. Boom! Wang Xian walked straight towards him. However, before he could reach him, a loud sound was heard. The formation that was standing at the entrance suddenly shook. The water currents condensed into a poisonous snake and landed directly on the body of Master Huazhenzi. A terrifying force landed on his body. Under the gaze of everyone around, the body of Master Huazhenzi exploded and turned into a stream of blood mist that landed on the ground. Everyone was slightly shocked and shook their heads slowly. Master! Elder Hua! Outside, the expressions of more than 10 people from the Spirit Array sect changed drastically. They hurriedly shouted out loud and their expressions were extremely ugly. 1 second ago, they were still happy. However, the next second, they were crushed into a bloody mist by the terrifying array formation. Wang Xian was slightly shocked as well. His eyes flickered as he looked at the array formation at the entrance. He looked around and walked straight ahead. He took out a formation compass in a pretentious manner. There's another person who wants to break the formation at the entrance. Who is this young man? Is he from the Spirit Formation sect? When Wang Xian walked to the front of the entrance, some people around him looked over and revealed astonished expressions. Go! Follow the route your master took to break the formation and bring his interspatial ring over. At the entrance, an elder glanced at Wang Xian and ignored him. He spoke to a young man directly. It's an elder. The young man's eyes were slightly red as he nodded. He took the array compass and walked inside carefully. Stand here and don't move. Don't activate the array. The young man walked to the front of the array. When he saw Wang Xian walking over, he turned around with a cold face and shouted. Wang Xian took a glance at him and raised his eyebrows slightly. Stop right there. Wait for our people to retrieve the interspatial ring before you go over. Behind him, a few people from the Spirit Array sect also warned Wang Xian. The most taboo thing to do when breaking a formation was to have someone beside you. If the person beside him were to trigger the formation, the other person would be implicated as well. When the Spirit Array sect was breaking the formation earlier, it prevented the surrounding people from breaking it through the entrance. Wang Xian shrugged his shoulders slightly and looked at the young man beside him. Do you need me to help you take it out? The young man was slightly stunned when he heard Wang Xian's words. Following that, his expression turned even colder. You think you can enter the ancient proverb mansion with just your abilities? Get lost. The young man was in a very bad mood and shouted directly. Kid, get out. Otherwise, there will be another corpse here. The other middle-aged man from the Spirit Formation sect took a step towards Wang Xian. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he spoke. He. When Wang Xian heard their words, his eyes revealed a hint of coldness. A bunch of trash. He spoke indifferently and walked straight in. You're courting death. When the middle-aged man heard Wang Xian's words, his eyes revealed killing intent. The long sword in his hand did not hesitate and he stabbed directly. He would kill without any hesitation. This was the graveyard of the demi-humans. The strong would be the king. The burial ground of the weak. Wang Xian's eyes were filled with contempt. He ignored him and walked straight ahead. Buzz. After entering the formation, Wang Xian didn't feel any hindrance. The attacks from behind landed directly on the formation, creating faint ripples. The middle-aged man who was attacking was slightly stunned. Everyone around him was stunned as they watched this scene. How? How is this possible? How could he enter the formation so easily? The young man who was standing at the side was stunned. His master, the master of formations, had used half a month to break through 3 formations. The first layer of formations had also taken 2 days. How could he enter the formation so easily? However, what shocked everyone even more was that Wang Xian walked straight to the front. He walked straight to the side of the interspatial ring and picked it up. Then, he continued to walk forward. What? How is this possible? How did he pass through one formation after another? This. Everyone around was in shock. Even the people from the spirit formation sect widened their eyes. This. The people from the spirit formation sect were so angry that they almost vomited blood. They watched as Wang Xian picked up the interspatial ring and entered it directly. They recalled Wang Xian's words just now. Should they help you pick it up? However, their reaction was disdain. They told him to get lost. However, now, the other party had just walked in just like that. A slap to the face. It was a blatant slap to the face. How is this possible? The Spirit Formation sect has used half a month to crack it, and Master Hua Zhenzi died inside. How did he enter so easily? The people around were shocked. Someone is about to enter the old Saying mansion. Another mansion has been occupied by someone. Everyone around looked at Wang Xian's disappearing figure with an awkward expression. Guard here. I don't know what method this kid used to enter. Even if he has the life to enter, he must have the life to take the treasure away. The people from the Spirit Array sect all had gloomy expressions. The void interpretation expert standing in the middle said coldly. Chapter 1201, Treasures. In the human demon tomb, next to the ancient proverb mansion of the insightful emptiness realm expert, everyone from the Spirit Array sect stood at the entrance of the cave mansion with cold gazes. The rest of the people were also surrounding the ancient proverb mansion as they waited for Wang Xian to come over. The weak were innocent and would be punished for possessing treasures. The weak were not qualified to possess treasures. They are guarding the surroundings one by one. Wang Xian turned his head and looked over. His eyes revealed a cold expression. The corner of his mouth curled up slightly as he looked at the front of the cave. After entering the interior of the mansion, there was a different world inside. The entire mountain peak was completely empty. Inside was a training ground. The area above had collapsed. However, due to the protection of the formation, the interior was extremely clean. Upon entering the interior, Wang Xian could clearly sense that the spiritual energy was several times stronger than the outside. The former bloodstream sect was built on a mineral vein. Although the mineral vein had been dug out, its foundation was still intact. After walking for about 100 meters, a hall of the cave abode appeared in Wang Xian's line of sight. In the middle of the hall, there was a futon. Near the wall, there were tables, chairs, and benches. It was obvious that the futon was used to entertain guests. Even after thousands of years, they were still undamaged. I wonder what treasures are inside. Wang Xian's eyes flickered. He immediately cast his dragon eyes of fire and darkness and scanned his surroundings. This futon is a treasure. Wang Xian looked at the futon that was sitting cross-legged in the middle of his training. His body moved and he flew over directly. With a wave of his arm, he grabbed the futon in his hand. TSK, the futon that is used to assist in training is comparable to a weapon at the half-step void interpretation level. A smile appeared on Wang Xian's face. As expected of the mansion of a void interpretation expert, any one of the items was not cheap at all. After keeping the futon in his interspatial ring, Wang Xian swept his gaze across the hall once again. There were no valuable items in the entire hall. He looked up. There were stone caves at the top of the hall. The largest one was in the middle. Wang Xian flew up and pushed open the stone door in the middle. Boom! Boom! The stone door opened and Wang Xian looked inside. It should be the resting place of the strong ancient adage. There was a 1-meter-sized spiritual tree in front of the bed. However, it had already withered. He glanced around and frowned slightly. There was nothing there. He walked out of the stone door in the middle and came to the left. The moment he opened it, the stench of corrosion came from inside. Wang Xian frowned slightly and looked inside. There were 3 3-meter-long bodies of ferocious beasts lying inside. Ferocious beasts that were at least at the half-step void interpretation level had starved to death inside. Don't tell me there aren't any treasures. Wang Xian revealed a helpless expression as he walked into the third stone cave. Boom! When Wang Xian pushed open the door, he frowned again. Bones, human bones. Moreover, it was the bones of a woman. There were more than a dozen of them. It seems like this insightful emptiness realm expert is not a good person. He has imprisoned so many women. Wang Xian took a glance and walked towards the last 2 caves. Buzz! When Wang Xian pushed open the 4th cave, a strong spiritual energy rushed over. He was delighted and quickly entered the cave. It was a small herb garden. The entire herb garden was covered by a formation. A strong surge of spiritual energy came from within. There was a pond in the middle with half of the water in it. A strong surge of spiritual energy came from the water. All of them are elixirs above transcendent level 8. There are more than 200 stocks of them. Not bad, not bad. Wang Xian laughed. More than 200 stalks of spiritual herbs were enough to extract more than 100,000 dragon crystals. After storing all the spiritual herbs into his spiritual bag, Wang Xian walked towards the last cave. I hope there are some good things inside. Otherwise, the cave abode of a void interpretation stage powerhouse would be too shabby. As Wang Xian spoke, he opened the last cave. Clang! 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 The moment the door was opened, the sound of metal colliding could be heard from inside. Wang Xian looked over and was pleasantly surprised. Weapons! The last cave was filled with all kinds of weapons. In the middle of the cave, there was a red water table. Beside the water table, there was a pile of neatly arranged metals. There were all kinds of metals. The lowest grade of the metals was transcendent level 9. There were even quite a number of metals at the first level of the void interpretation stage. On the wall, there were 10 weapons at the first level of the see-through realm. The rest were all above transcendent level 8. There were more than 100 of them. Wang Xian grinned. He didn't expect this old saying to be a master of water refining. Not bad, not bad. These weapons can be sold for a lot of money. Moreover, these metals can be refined into weapons themselves. Furthermore, they are the type of set equipment. Wang Xian kept them into his interspatial ring directly. Oh right, there's also that Master Hua Zhenzi's interspatial ring. Wang Xian thought of the interspatial ring that he picked up on the way in and took a look at it immediately. 1,000 drops of spiritual liquid. It's really poor. There are 2 spell formations of level 8 and 1 of level 9 transcendence. It's still average. Wang Xian narrowed his eyes. The income from this trip could be exchanged for at least 5 million spiritual liquid. TSK, it seems that I will be able to advance to level 9 of the extraordinary soon. Wang Xian couldn't help but laugh. His dragon eyes of light and dark fire scanned the surroundings. When he realized that no treasures had fallen, he walked toward the entrance. They actually surrounded the entire area. Wang Xian looked outside. At the entrance, the people from the Spirit Array sect were staring at him coldly. He frowned slightly. There was a void interpretation expert outside, and there were quite a number of half-step void interpretation experts. Although it was not to the extent of leaving him here, it was still very troublesome. Let's go out from somewhere else. Wang Xian thought for a moment and came to the opposite side of the entrance. With a wave of his hand, a beam of golden light shot towards the mountain peak. Whoosh! When the golden light landed on the mountain peak, it dissipated immediately, revealing the protective formation. Wang Xian's figure moved and flew out directly. Ha! The surroundings of the ancient proverb mansion had already been surrounded by hundreds of people. The moment Wang Xian dashed out, he attracted the attention of more than 100 people around him. He's out. Kill him. This guy must have obtained a lot of treasures in there. Leave him alone. Two roars were heard. In an instant, the eyes of the two half-step void interpretation experts who were closest to Wang Xian revealed an excited look as they attacked him directly. You really think I'm easy to bully? Wang Xian's eyes were filled with a cold glint. He shook his hands, and a ray of golden light and a red and blue ball of light shot towards the two void interpretation experts who were close to him. Boom! Buzz! Two unique sounds were heard as they attacked the two of them instantly. Ah! Ah! The two of them hurriedly brandished their weapons and slashed towards Wang Xian's attack. However, a miserable scream was heard in an instant. As the golden stream swept past, half of the body of the insightful emptiness realm expert disappeared. He fell to the ground with serious injuries. As for the other expert, he was torn into pieces under the attack of the extreme explosion of ice and fire. Chapter 1202, The mansion was my treasure trove. What? So powerful. So powerful. One of the two half-step void interpretation experts was severely injured while the other was killed directly. Hiss, such terrifying strength. The miserable shrieks rang out, causing everyone who was about to chase after Wang Xian to freeze. Their faces were filled with shock. The momentum of their pursuit immediately stopped. They couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. Who is he? He instantly injured a half-step void interpretation expert and killed one. Is he a void interpretation expert? Everyone who was about to ambush and kill Wang Xian stopped as cold sweat appeared on their foreheads. If they had charged faster just now, they might have died. Boom! At this moment, the void interpretation expert from the Spirit Array sect rushed over. When he saw Wang Xian's attack, his pupils constricted slightly. To kill two insightful void martial artists in an instant, this strength was definitely not something that anyone below the insightful void martial artist could achieve. As expected, to be able to enter the ancient proverb mansion, he is not an ordinary powerhouse. The insightful void martial artist from the Spirit Array sect also stopped. Looking at Wang Xian's disappearing figure, his eyes kept flickering. If the other party concealed his strength, even if he were to chase after him, he would not be able to stop him. He might even be in danger. In front of the ancient proverb mansion, a few hundred people saw Wang Xian entering the mansion. They charged out and left in a carefree manner. Next, let's go to Blackcloud Castle. Wang Xian sensed that no one was chasing after him. He took out a map and made a cross at the location of the ancient proverb mansion, encircling Blackcloud Castle. Blackcloud Castle, the second chaotic formation mansion. Compared to the ancient proverb mansion, Blackcloud Castle was much larger. Blackcloud Castle was only 100 kilometers away from here. Wang Xian dashed forward and soon arrived in front of Blackcloud Castle. Compared to the chaotic formation mansion, there were more people around Blackcloud Castle. The entire castle occupied an area of about 3 to 4 kilometers. This was not a castle on the ground, but a castle that was more than half sunk into the ground. About 10 meters above the castle, dark clouds covered it. Half of the castle had been destroyed, and the chaotic array formation had formed a chaotic mansion. For thousands of years, no one had been able to enter. Even a transcendent level 5 or 6 expert wouldn't be able to break in. If the chaotic array formation was attacked with a powerful external force, it might cause a backlash from the array formation. The explosion of the array formation would blow up the entire mansion. At that time, all the treasures inside would be turned into ruins. A few days ago, there were still experts who tried to barge in with their powerful strength. After a few explosions and even the experts who tried to barge in were killed, there were no more experts who dared to barge in. Wang Xian looked at the Blackcloud Castle. There were many entrances to the Blackcloud Castle. One could even enter through the windows. The entire castle seemed to be filled with life. It was very likely that there was still life inside. Wang Xian scanned the surroundings. There were about 700 to 800 people gathered in groups to think of a way to break the formation. The corner of his mouth curled up slightly. He found a secret place and looked around. With a move, Wang Xian easily entered the castle. After looting the mansions of the strong men and demons in the cemetery one by one, the resources obtained are enough for me to level up. Wang Xian had an excited look on his face. He swept his gaze across the entire Blackcloud castle and began his treasure hunt. After entering the huge castle, Wang Xian immediately felt a wave of spiritual energy fluctuation. He was not in a hurry. He started to search through the houses one by one. There were not many weapons, armor, and elixirs placed in porcelain bottles. However, after searching through more than 10 rooms, Wang Xian managed to find quite a number of them. This should be the place where the Lord of Blackcloud Castle cultivates. Wang Xian pushed open the door of a room and looked at an open space that was the size of a playground. His eyes were sparkling. That's the herb garden. Hiss, there's a bottle of spiritual liquid over there. What kind of spiritual tree is this? The moment he entered, it was as though he had entered a treasure house. Wang Xian's eyes were shining as he looked around. Chirp chirp. Chirp chirp. The roars of beasts could be heard one after another. Wang Xian was slightly shocked and quickly looked over. This is... Wang Xian looked over and immediately noticed that 5 golden monkeys were staring at him curiously. It's a demon beast, the little yen monkey. It's a demon beast with half-step void interpretation. Furthermore, it's a cub. Wang Xian looked at them and scanned his surroundings. Under the trees where the little yen monkey was staying, there were 6 corpses of the little yen monkeys that were 2 meters in size. 6 baby yen monkeys. Their value is not low. Wang Xian smiled. With a move of his arm, a stream of water surrounded all of them. The little yen monkeys that were only at Transcendent Level 6 did not have the ability to resist at all. They were caught by Wang Xian and placed into his storage spiritual bag. Following that, Wang Xian began to harvest the treasures quickly. Half an hour later, a figure emerged from the Blackcloud Fort quietly and dashed into the distance. Around the Blackcloud Fort, 700 to 800 people were still studying how to enter. Little did they know that there were no more treasures inside. My next target is the Blood Spirit Cave. Wang Xian flew towards the ocean. Some of the mansions of the Voidwalkers were located at the bottom of the ocean. Some were located at the bottom of the ocean while some were located at the interior of the underwater mountain peaks. Some of the residences of the experts were luxurious residences that they had built with their powerful strength. Once they entered the sea, it was like a dragon entering the sea, and their speed suddenly increased. The reddish seawater emitted a bloody smell. Compared to land, the number of people in the sea was no less than on land. Everyone went to the bottom of the sea to search for treasures. There was once someone who found an interspatial ring at the bottom of the sea. In the end, there was a powerful level 6 profound void tier armor inside. Even a level 1 or level 2 profound void tier expert would not be able to hurt him if he wore the armor. Moreover, there were many mansions of various experts at the bottom of the sea. Coming to the bottom of the sea that was 20,000 meters deep, the entire sea was like an abyss. Compared to the land, this place was even more dangerous. It was possible to encounter some ferocious beasts at any time. Moreover, there were more demonic beasts active in the sea than on land. The Blood Spirit Cave was located at the bottom of the sea. There was a cave entrance which was covered by a powerful chaotic formation. There was no one around the Blood Spirit Cave because the chaotic formation here was considered a killing formation. Once one accidentally touched the formation, one would be killed by the powerful formation. Some people said that this was a certain death entrance. As time passed, no one came to the Blood Spirit Cave. This is very convenient for me. The corner of Wang Xian's mouth curled up slightly as he entered the cave directly. A few hours later, Wang Xian came out from the cave with a face full of joy. There are still 5 mansions in the safer areas for humans. However, 4 of them have been occupied by powerful people. Only one of them is unoccupied. The rest of these uncracked mansions are more dangerous to the demonic beasts. After I obtain the treasures in the last mansion, I will head back immediately to digest the treasures. Wang Xian's eyes flickered as he flew towards the sword mansion of the last powerhouse. Chapter 1203, Noam the Chosen One. The sword mansion was the most unique among the cave mansions of the experts. The chaotic array in the sword mansion was the most unique. Anyone who entered the sword mansion would be attacked by the sword array. The stronger the energy in the body was, the longer the attack would be. The weaker the person was, the weaker the attack would be. Some insightful Void Realm experts were killed by the sword array, but many extraordinary realm experts escaped from the sword array. The sword mansion was located in the forest. It was a huge mansion. The sky is already bright. Unknowingly, a night had passed. The main reason was that Wang Xian had stayed in the Blood Spirit Cave for a long time. Wang Xian sped up and rushed towards the sword mansion. Buzz! 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 Just as he was about to climb over a mountain peak, more than 10 terrifying bees the size of a human head attacked him. Life-exterminating bees. I didn't expect that there are still some ferocious beasts that haven't been killed by humans. Wang Xian waved his arm and the extremely hot sea of water swept straight ahead. Boom! The extremely hot sea of water swept past and all the life-exterminating bees fell straight to the ground. More than 10 ferocious beasts of Transcendent Level 9 were easily killed. The stinger of the life-exterminating bees is a good material to refine weapons. After collecting the stinger, Wang Xian continued to dash towards the direction of the sword mansion. There were dense trees that were hundreds of meters tall. Wang Xian was dashing among them, making him look extremely tiny. Roar! Haha, awesome, this is awesome. Brother Xingyun, the speed of your Purgatory Mastiff is really too fast. It's too domineering. Haha, it's just that this fellow still has a bad temper. However, I like it. At this moment, a series of galloping sounds came from behind him. Wang Xian was slightly stunned. He turned around and saw 5 people riding their mounts towards him. The young man in the middle carried a long sword on his back and was riding a ferocious-looking 3-meter-sized ferocious beast. The Purgatory Mastiff was a ferocious beast with the bloodline of the 2nd level of the see-through void tier. It was a well-known ferocious and violent expert among beasts. Even though this Purgatory Mastiff only had the strength of a Transcendent Level 9, it was still extremely violent. Charge! The figure of the green-robed young man in the middle moved for a moment. His body emitted a strong wind attribute energy. The strong wind covered the body of the Purgatory Mastiff, causing its speed to double abruptly. Looking at the 5 people charging towards him, especially the young man in the middle, it was as if he didn't see him. Wang Xian raised his eyebrows slightly and made a path for him. Roar! Roar! The Purgatory Mastiff's entire body was exuding black dark energy. As it surged forward, it looked like black flames and looked like a gentle breeze. When the Purgatory Mastiff flew to Wang Xian's side, a pair of blood-red eyes stared at him and let out a soft roar. A Purgatory Mastiff head condensed from the dark attribute attacked him directly. Wang Xian frowned slightly and dodged to the side. Huh! The young man in green didn't even take a glance at him. He laughed out loud. The 4 young men behind him took a glance at Wang Xian and laughed out loud as well. Then, they charged straight ahead. You're so arrogant. Don't you know that people will die easily? Wang Xian narrowed his eyes slightly and continued to rush towards the sword mansion. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of the sword could be heard from a few thousand meters away. This sword mansion is much stronger than the previous immortal caves of the powerhouses. When Wang Xian approached the sword mansion, sharp sounds were heard, which surprised him slightly. So many people. When he arrived, he realized that there were more people here than the Black Cloud Castle. There were more than 2,000 people. However, what surprised Wang Xian was that there were very few insightful emptiness realm experts here. At a glance, there was only an elder at level 1 of the insightful emptiness realm. Everyone held a long sword in their hands and stood in front of the sword mansion. There was only one entrance to the sword mansion, and the other 3 sides were all backed by the mountain peak. To enter the sword mansion, one had to walk through a 1,000-meter-long sword tomb. However, up until now, no one had been able to walk through it. Over time, this place had become a training ground for sword cultivators. Wang Xian walked forward and approached the front of the sword mansion. Without a long sword in his hand, he looked slightly different. There were people sparring here, and there were also people walking into the sword tomb. The sound of sword chimes came from the sword tomb. I have a body without a formation. I won't activate the attack formation. I can walk through it easily. Wang Xian looked ahead and walked straight ahead. The fairy sword, Ling Jian Er, is here. Ling Jian Er is here. I heard that Ling Jian Er advanced more than 500 meters in the sword tomb yesterday. She is simply too strong. The most important thing is that she can exit the sword tomb easily. This is the most powerful thing. Just as Wang Xian was walking towards the sword tomb, an exclamation came from behind. Roar! Roar! Move aside! Move aside! At this moment, a ferocious roar and a loud shout came from behind. A familiar aura rushed towards them. There were 4 young men beside them. Those in front, move aside! There was another shout. The group of young men in front quickly made way for them. Wang Xian looked over and saw the young man who was riding the Purgatory Mastiff staring at him fiercely. The corner of Wang Xian's mouth curled up slightly. A cold glint flashed across his eyes. After coming out of the sword mansion, Wang Xian was prepared to teach them how to behave. Of course, they had to behave well in their next lives. Wang Xian made way for them and watched the 5 of them walk over in an overbearing manner. Is this the ferocious beast mount that Jian Tianqing obtained? What a ferocious aura! Purgatory Mastiff, Bloodline Level Profound Void Tier 2. Heavens, I'm so envious. If I had such a cool mount, that would be awesome. Everyone around had envious looks on their faces. They were used to the domineering attitude of Jian Tianqing and the others. No, it should be said that he had the qualifications to do so. Jian Tianqing rode on the Purgatory Mastiff and ignored everyone. His eyes were only fixed on the long-haired girl in white who was holding a long sword in her hand. Miss Ling Jian VR, are you going to barge into the sword tomb today? Let me accompany you. He rode the Purgatory Mastiff to Ling Jian VR's side and immediately jumped down. A light smile appeared on his face and the arrogance on his face completely disappeared. No need. Roar roar. Ling Jian did not even look at him. The half-meter demonic beast that was like a puppy on its shoulder even roared at it. Miss Ling Jian VR, take a look at this Purgatory Mastiff. How is it? It's a 2nd level profound void tier baby just like little Ha on you. Jian Tianqing did not pay any attention to Ling Jian ER's indifference and continued to speak with a face full of enthusiasm. Ling Jian did not reply and walked straight ahead. The corner of Tian Jianqing's mouth twitched slightly and he squeezed out a smile as he followed by the side. Roar roar roar. The dog-like Ha, who was lying on Ling Jian ER's body, raised his head slightly and roared at Heavenly Sword Star once again. He bared his teeth and had a fierce look on his face. Chapter 1204, I am the pride of the world. The demonic beast cub on Ling Jian ER's shoulder roared at Heavenly Sword Star, making him even more embarrassed. Roar! However, to everyone's surprise, the Purgatory Mastiff beside Heavenly Sword Star let out a furious roar when it saw Xiao Ha roaring at its master. A 2-meter-tall black flame rose from its body, and its blood-red eyes stared at Xiao Ha as if it was ready to pounce at any moment. Roar roar, looking for a fight, looking for a fight. Xiao Ha, who was lying on Ling Jian-er's body, was also enraged when it saw the ferocious Purgatory Mastiff. It let out a roar and spoke in a tender human language. Following that, Xiao Ha's figure instantly attacked the Purgatory Mastiff. Even though Xiao Ha didn't look like it was even half a meter, its speed was extremely terrifying. Its 4 limbs turned golden, and its sharp claws directly drilled out. The demonic beast cub on Ling Jian-er's shoulder also had the bloodline of the 2nd rank of the Profound Void tier, and its current strength had already reached the peak of the 9th rank. No matter how small a demonic beast cub was, it still had the aura of a king. If a beast of the same level provoked it, it naturally wouldn't cower. Little Ha was like a sharp sword as it directly attacked the Purgatory Mastiff. The Purgatory Mastiff opened its bloody mouth and instantly bit towards Little Ha. However, at this moment, Little Ha, who was flying in the air, waved his claws and a golden sharp sword directly attacked the Purgatory Mastiff's mouth. The sudden attack of the 2 pets caused everyone in the surroundings to be slightly stunned. Even Ling Jian-er and Heavenly Sword Star had not expected this. Roar roar roar! Xiao Ha's attack landed on the Purgatory Mastiff's mouth, causing it to let out a painful cry. Its eyes turned even redder. Xiao Ha, stop! Ling Jian-er immediately shouted at Xiao Ha. Roar roar! Xiao Ha revealed a smug look on its face. Its body flew to her shoulder and it stuck out its tongue to lick her face. Purgatory, stop! Heavenly Sword Star also hurriedly shouted at the Purgatory Mastiff. However, the ferocious Purgatory Mastiff was now injured in its mouth, making it even more violent. It opened its huge mouth, wanting to continue attacking Xiao Ha. Heavenly Sword Star's expression changed slightly, and his aura trembled. The long sword in his hand pressed down on the top of its head. Roar roar! The Purgatory Mastiff was controlled by Heavenly Sword Star, and it continued to roar in a low voice. Ling Jian-er glanced at the Purgatory Mastiff and walked straight ahead. Heavenly Sword Star glared at the Purgatory Mastiff and hurriedly chased after it. Roar! However, Heavenly Sword Star had just walked a dozen meters behind it. When he retracted his hand from the Purgatory Mastiff saw Little Ha glaring at him fiercely and suddenly went berserk, letting out a furious roar. Purgatory, behave yourself! Heavenly Sword Star turned around somewhat impatiently and let out an angry roar at the Purgatory Mastiff. Damn, this Purgatory Mastiff is so violent and savage. The Purgatory Mastiff has always been a very violent and savage beast. Heavenly Sword Star has clearly not tamed it completely. It's too savage. The surrounding people saw that the Purgatory Mastiff had lost control once again. Black flames curled around its body and it emitted a terrifying murderous aura. Some of the surrounding people could not help but take 2 steps back. Roar! However, just as they were discussing in hushed voices, after Heavenly Sword Star's furious roar, the Purgatory Mastiff suddenly went berserk and charged forward. Be careful! The expressions of the youths in front changed drastically as they hurriedly dodged to the side. Purgatory, stop right there! However, the few young men moved their bodies and flew into the sky to dodge far away. Roar! Its blood-red eyes charged forward once again. When it saw that the figure in front of it didn't dodge, it charged forward ferociously. Am I that unlucky? Wang Xian, who was walking towards the Sword Mansion, felt the attack coming from behind him. His eyes turned cold. He turned around and waved his arm. A stream of water shot towards the Purgatory Mastiff. Bang! The Purgatory Mastiff, which had just pounced over, was hit in the head by the powerful water. It crashed heavily into the ground with a loud sound. Stop it, you damned fellow! How dare you attack my mount? Seeing his pet being sent flying, Heavenly Sword Star spat out a mouthful of blood. His expression changed drastically as he shouted sternly. He moved and came to the side of the Purgatory Mastiff. He took a glance at his pet and stared at Wang Xian coldly. Mind your own mount. Wang Xian looked at Heavenly Sword Star and narrowed his eyes slightly. I will mind my own pet. However, you dare to attack him. Kid, I think you are courting death. The long sword in Heavenly Sword Star's hand moved and emitted a green glow. Hee, it was your pet that attacked me first. Don't tell me you don't allow me to retaliate. Wang Xian smiled and asked indifferently. No. Heavenly Sword Star said tyrannically. Heavenly Sword Star is really overbearing. It was clearly this Purgatory Mastiff that attacked first. He has the right to be overbearing. After all, he is the 15th heaven's favorite. Strength is king. The weak are the original sin. When the surrounding people saw this scene and heard Heavenly Sword Star's words, their faces didn't change at all. In the purgatory field of the graveyard of demi-humans, the strong were the king. The weak had no right to speak at all. They had often seen people killing in public and snatching other people's treasures. Although Heavenly Sword Star's actions were extremely overbearing, he had the right to do so. Roar! At this moment, just as Heavenly Sword Star finished speaking, the Purgatory Mastiff beside him shook its head and once again pounced towards Wang Xian violently. Heavenly Sword Star frowned slightly. He didn't say anything to stop it and stared at Wang Xian coldly. Wang Xian looked at the overbearing Heavenly Sword Star. When he saw the Purgatory Mastiff pouncing towards him again, the killing intent in his heart was completely released. He moved his palm slightly and the terrifying energy in his hand condensed. He stared at the attack that was coming towards him and waved his arm. He still dares to attack. He is disrespecting Heavenly Sword Star. This kid is going to be in trouble. When everyone around saw Wang Xian making a move, they were astonished and whispered. Ha! Ling Jian who was standing at the side, frowned slightly when she saw Wang Xian. He still dares to attack. Heavenly Sword Star's eyes were ice cold. The long sword in his hand was condensed with gusts of wind radiance. Boom! However, at this moment, the sound of an explosion was suddenly heard. The Purgatory Mastiff that was pouncing at Wang Xian didn't fly backward this time. Instead, it was completely turned into minced meat in the explosion of metal and wood. Small pieces and small pieces. The largest piece was only the size of a fist. What? When the surrounding people saw this scene, they were completely stunned. You actually dared to kill my mount. I am the heaven's favorite Tian Jian Xing. Today, I will definitely tear you into pieces. Heaven's Sword Star roared furiously when he saw the Purgatory Mastiff that his father had spent a lot of effort to get for him was directly blasted into pieces. Chapter 1205, Defeating a Heaven's Pride Expert. How dare you kill my mount? I am Heaven's Pride, Heaven's Sword Star. Today, I will tear you into pieces. Heaven's Sword Star's furious roar was heard. As he looked at the pieces of the Purgatory Mastiff's corpse on the ground, his eyes slowly turned blood red. The value of a second-level void interpretation beast could buy half a city. Now that he was killed by Wang Xian, he let out an angry roar and charged towards him. A terrifying gust of wind instantly gathered around him. He was like a violent tornado that swept across the entire sky. The tornado turned into a sharp sword that was incomparably sharp. A terrifying murderous aura gathered in the storm and covered an area of 1 kilometer. Everyone's expression changed drastically as they retreated in a hurry. This fellow is going to die. He actually dared to kill the mount of the Heavenly Sword Star. That's a ferocious beast with a level 2 bloodline of the Void Interpretation realm. It's priceless. I'm angry. That young man killed the mount of Heavenly Sword Star. He will not rest until he is dead. Is this guy courting death? Heavenly Sword Star is ranked 15th on the prodigy roll. There are only a dozen people in the younger generation who are stronger than him. Is that guy courting death? That young man was able to kill a level 9 Transcendent Purgatory Mastiff in an instant. His strength is not simple. It is very likely that he has the strength of a half-step Profound Void tier. He can be comparable to a prodigy. Everyone around them retreated backward in horror. They looked at the Heaven's Sword Star with a murderous aura. Heaven's Pride expert. Hee, do you know that you are courting death? Arrogant? I will let you know the price of being arrogant in front of me. Wang Xian's eyes were filled with killing intent. He originally wanted to kill this fellow after he came out of the Sword Mansion. However, he didn't expect him to be so arrogant. Since that was the case, he would fulfill his wish. Die! Tian Jianxing moved his body and brought along a sword storm that was 1,000 meters tall. He attacked Wang Xian directly. Buzz! Wang Xian looked at Tian Jianxing, who was attacking him with a sword storm. His gaze focused slightly. In the sky, earthy yellow soil appeared instantly. Wang Xian waved his arm again. Numerous thorns appeared directly and twined around Heavenly Sword Star and the storm of blades on his body. In an instant, the dense thorns connected with the soil and formed a huge net that was 1,000 meters tall and 100 meters wide in front of him. The dense thorns seemed to be weaving the entire world into it. The storm of blades on Heavenly Sword Star dissipated slowly and trapped his entire body. What? Heavenly Sword Star's pupils contracted slightly, and a solemn expression appeared on his face. Hiss, that young man is so strong. Heavenly Sword Star has encountered a tough opponent this time. When everyone around saw this scene, their expressions changed slightly. How dare a fellow who has not reached the insightful void stage be so arrogant and not put anyone in his eyes? Trash, go and become a new person. A hint of disdain appeared in Wang Xian's eyes. With a move of his palm, a terrifying combination attribute was sent flying. Extreme Ice and Fire Explosion. Golden Flow. Following that, 2 combination attribute attacks were thrown out casually. Even a powerhouse at the first level of the Insightful Void stage would have to be careful in dealing with these 2 types of attacks. Sword Control Wind Shield. When Heavenly Sword Star saw Wang Xian's attack, his face changed drastically. His body trembled as 2-meter-long wind swords were formed rapidly and spun around him rapidly. It was the divine ability, Sword Control Wind Shield. Sensing Wang Xian's attack, he unleashed all of his strength. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Boom! The Extreme Ice and Fire attack exploded on Heavenly Sword Star's divine ability defense. The entire Sword Control Wind Shield collapsed slowly. What? Heavenly Sword Star was horrified. One attack had broken through his divine ability defense. Another attack followed closely behind. He gritted his teeth as a green light flashed in front of his chest. A green armor appeared. Boom! A powerful force landed on his Insightful Void tier armor. Heavenly Sword Star retreated backward. You! The powerful impact caused his body to fly backward. His expression changed drastically as he stared at Wang Xian with widened eyes. Do you think that you are a heaven's favorite and can suppress everything? Wang Xian revealed a mocking look in his eyes. Water Tomb. He shouted softly. A water tomb appeared instantly and headed straight for the Heavenly Sword Star. Wind Blast. When he saw Wang Xian's attack approaching again, he roared and retreated hurriedly. However, his speed was still a little slow. Even though he had used his supernatural ability, he was still restrained by the water tomb. Heaven's Pride, today I will beat up an arrogant Heaven's Pride like you. It's better to keep a low profile. Wang Xian's eyes were extremely cold as he looked at the sky. Boom! A huge mountain appeared directly in the sky above Heavenly Sword Star. The mountain was about 1,000 meters in size. At this moment, a terrifying flame suddenly appeared on the mountain peak. The mountain peak directly descended. Ah, you can't kill me. I'm a heaven's chosen. I have a profound void tier armor on me. You can't kill me. Heavenly Sword Star looked at the terrifying mountain peak descending towards him and roared loudly with a malevolent expression. He struggled out of the water tomb and fled into the distance. However, he still wasn't able to escape the distance of the fire territory. Boom! The fire territory landed on Heavenly Sword Star's body. A green light appeared on his armor and a terrifying defense covered his entire body, blocking the fire territory's attack for him. Crack, crack, crack. However, in less than a second, the green light on his armor began to crumble. No! Heavenly Sword Star's face was filled with shock and his eyes were filled with fear. No, don't kill me. My father is the sect leader of Swords Gate. Don't kill me. Tian Jianxing's void interpretation level armor was crumbling bit by bit. Finally, he panicked. The veins on his face bulged as he shouted loudly. You are a heaven's favorite. Don't beg for mercy. It will lower your status. Wang Xian's indifferent voice was heard. Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, the fire territory exploded completely. A terrifying impact landed directly on Tian Jianxing's body. In an instant, Heavenly Sword Star was even more miserable than the Purgatory Mastiff. He turned into a bloody mist and left behind an interspatial ring. Hiss, hiss, hiss. The sound of gasping could be heard from the people around them. They looked at Wang Xian, who was standing there calmly. Their faces were filled with shock. Heavenly Sword Star was a Heaven's Pride expert. Heaven's Pride experts were not conferred by themselves. The real Heaven's Pride experts were conferred by the ancient Bloodstream sect. In the entire Luhai region, only the top 20 people before the age of 50 could be called prodigies. This meant that the top 20 people in the entire Luhai region might become level 3, level 4, or even stronger existences in the future. Heavenly Sword Star was a prodigy. He had the right to look down on the youth of his generation. He had the right to be overbearing and arrogant. Because he was a prodigy. But now, a Heaven's favorite was actually directly beaten up. Compared to the young generation, he didn't have the ability to fight back at all. Chapter 1206, the Sword King. Good, what terrifying strength. A prodigy of his generation was actually defeated by a young man. He didn't even have the ability to resist. This. A cold wind blew past and the Heavenly Sword Star that had turned into a blood mist dissipated. Everyone widened their eyes in shock. The Heavenly Sword Star is a half-step void interpretation expert. He is even wearing a level 1 armor. Even if I wanted to kill him, I would have to use the power of my Abhijna. This young man's strength is so strong. The only level 1 void interpretation expert was staring at Wang Xian with a twinkle in his eyes. He was filled with amazement. It was very easy for him to kill a half-step void interpretation expert. He could even kill him in one move. However, he wanted to kill a half-step void interpretation level Heaven's Pride expert. This Heaven's Pride expert was even wearing a level 1 armor. Even he had to attack several times consecutively before he could do it. However, from the moment this young man attacked until the end, he had been suppressing Heavenly Sword Star until he exploded into a bloody mist. Heavenly Sword Star did not have the ability to resist at all. The level 1 armor of the void interpretation level collapsed immediately. Whoa! Xiao Ha, who was standing on Ling Jian-er's shoulder, saw Wang Xian's violent attack. It let out a weak roar and shrunk its head. As someone with higher intelligence, it naturally recognized that this young man was the owner of the gigantic ferocious beast that had bitten it last night. He's really not simple. As expected of the owner of a level 1 void interpretation ferocious beast. Ling Jian-er was also sizing up Wang Xian with a face full of astonishment. Hee hee. Wang Xian swept a contemptuous glance across the arena and sneered. He raised his head and looked towards the left. You want to. Wang Xian swept his gaze over. The four young men who were following Heavenly Sword Star had a drastic change in expression. They looked at him in horror and retreated backward in horror. Some people are not people that you can offend. Wang Xian looked at the four of them without any emotion. He waved his arm and a golden light swept toward the four of them. No! The four of them hurriedly swept their faces towards the back. However, due to the huge difference in strength, their escape was futile. Ah! For sounds of participation rang out. The four young men who had been following Heavenly Sword Star and showing off their prowess died immediately. This. What attribute did he use? Judging from the aura fluctuation, it's water attribute. Golden water? What kind of heaven and earth water is this? Also, his attack just now was weird. Could it be that he has dual attributes? If he has dual attributes, that would be heaven-defying. The two middle-aged men looked at Wang Xian's attack with a thoughtful expression. During Wang Xian's attack, they could feel the strong fluctuation of the water attribute energy as well as other attributes. However, Wang Xian had the heaven-deceiving pearl which could perfectly conceal his attribute attacks. The fire territory that he released just now contained both fire and earth attributes. However, from the outside, it seemed to be condensed from water energy. However, since he had the heaven-deceiving pearl, Wang Xian had released 5 attributes consecutively, which still left them extremely bewildered. From the attack just now, he might really have dual attributes. The expert at the first level of the see-through realm muttered and made a guess. Paw! 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 Wang Xian ignored the surprise of the crowd. With a wave of his arm, he kept the interspatial rings and walked straight into the sword mansion. Is he trying to break into the sword tomb? He's not a swordsman. Yeah, from his attack just now, I can tell that he's not a swordsman. When the crowd saw Wang Xian walking into the sword tomb, they were bewildered. Ling Jian looked at his figure and her eyes flashed. She followed behind him and walked into the sword tomb. Who do you think is stronger, Ling Jian or Tian Jianxing? A young man asked curiously when he saw Ling Jian walking into the sword tomb. Chapter 1207, Sword King's Inheritance. Wang Xian swung the level 5 sword in his hand. A hint of surprise appeared on his face. It was a pity that with his current strength, he was unable to unleash the power of this sword. He could only use it as a weapon that surpassed the level of half-step void interpretation. This sword seems to have 2 attributes. Wang Xian touched it and felt the sharpness and softness of the sword ray. It should be metal and water attributes. He looked at the corpse and took a book from his bosom. The Inheritance of the Sword King. Looking at the cover of the book, Wang Xian flipped it open. I am the Sword King Ling Haotsong, the Sword King of the Bloodstream sect. My swordsmanship is invincible in the Flowing Sea region. However, I was born at the wrong time and the Bloodstream sect was in chaos. I cannot suppress the bloodstream. I regret being born 20 years later. Otherwise, I will suppress everything. Wang Xian looked at the contents of the book and curled his lips slightly. This Ling Haotsong was really good at acting cool. Regardless of whether it was his deliberately mystifying voice when he just entered the door or the records on the words, there was a strong sense of acting cool. However, when Wang Xian continued reading, he raised his eyebrows slightly and his eyes flickered. Ling Haotsong was 83 years old when he died. Among the insightful emptiness realm experts, he was definitely an extremely young and demonic existence. And the 83-year-old Ling Haotsong was not at the first level of the insightful emptiness realm, but had reached the 5th level of the insightful emptiness realm. At that time, Ling Haotsong was called a rare genius by the Bloodstream sect. He would definitely suppress the entire sky in the future. Ling Haotsang's most terrifying aspect was not only his level, but also the attributes he cultivated, dual attributes, metal and water. Other than that, there was also his terrifying sword arts. The title of Sword King was not self-proclaimed. A peerless swordsman who cultivated dual attributes at the age of 83 was at level 5 of the see-through realm. At that time, his status was only second to a few top-notch figures. Such a peerless swordsman was harmed by demonic beasts when the bloodstream sect was separated. He had no choice but to return to his sword mansion and set up it as a land of inheritance. Peerless Sword King, dual attributes. With the strength of level 5 of the see-through realm, he could kill a level 6 see-through realm. This Ling Haotsang is truly peerless and talented. Wang Xian looked at the records and his eyes were filled with amazement. If he was born 20 years earlier, he would really have the strength to suppress everything. What could he do? The Golden Water Sword Principle. Wang Xian flipped back and saw Ling Haotsang's inherited sword techniques. They were all sword techniques. Among them, there were many powerful sword techniques that were combined with dual attributes. The Golden Water Principle. One was extremely hard and the other extremely soft. Both were hard and soft at the same time. Wang Xian flipped through the pages and realized that Ling Haotsang's metal and water sword principle was slightly different from his two attributes combination. To be more precise, Ling Haotsang's two attributes combination was even more exquisite. This gave him a lot of inspiration. My sword principle can only be inherited by a heaven's favorite who possesses both metal and water attributes. Without both metal and water attributes, one cannot enter the sword tomb. I hope that my successor can pass down my sword principle and carry it forward. Looking at Ling Haotsang's last sentence, Wang Xian was slightly moved. Although I possess both metal and water attributes, I might not be able to carry it forward. If I have the chance to meet a genius with both metal and water attributes in sword principle, I will pass this inheritance of yours to him. Wang Xian sighed and walked straight into the sword mansion. The strong were respected. Although Wang Xian initially felt that Ling Haotsang was a little pretentious, it seemed that he did have the ability to do so. However, as a divine dragon, it was unrealistic for him to acknowledge him as his master and promote the Golden Water Sword principle. Wang Xian walked straight into the sword mansion. According to Ling Haotsang's records, there was a sword training ground in the sword mansion that contained rich energy of the dual elemental metal and water. In addition, all of his treasures were stored here. Wang Xian took a stroll around the sword mansion. The sword training ground was located in a sword training room beside the corpse. Ling Haotsang left behind a few items. He was a swordsman who had almost gone crazy. There were no spiritual herbs, pets, or mounts in the sword mansion. Even the spiritual liquid was depleted when he was severely injured. There were only swords. There were a total of 18 of them. They were the long swords that he had used from the beginning of his sword training until his death. From ordinary iron swords to the third level of the see-through realm. However, what pleased Wang Xian was that Ling Haotsang's interspatial ring contained a lot of metals and materials used to forge long swords. The harvest is not bad. If I sell the items I obtained from these 4 mansions, I will definitely be able to raise my strength to the 9th level of the extraordinary realm. There might even be some left over. Wang Xian looked at the items in his interspatial ring and grinned. The treasures left behind by the 4 insightful emptiness realm experts, along with Hua Zhen's interspatial ring and Heavenly Sword Star's interspatial ring, were worth more than 1 trillion middle-grade spirit stones. Of course, there was a prerequisite. He had to sell all the insightful emptiness realm weapons. This included the weapons at the insightful emptiness realm. Wang Xian was not in a hurry to leave. Instead, he came to the sword training room of the Golden Water Sword Principle. He possessed both the metal and water attributes. He could definitely cultivate the Golden Water Sword Principle. Furthermore, from the swordsmanship of the Ling Haotsang Sword King, he could deepen his understanding of the combination of attributes. When he entered the sword training room, the rich metal and water attributes flooded in. The entire sword training room was filled with two types of long swords, the metal and water, dancing in the sky. Sometimes, when the metal and water swords collided, special changes would occur. In this room, one had to dodge the attacks of the metal and water swords and comprehend the usage of the two types of sword techniques. When Wang Xian entered, he immediately started to cultivate. Sword in the water. Gold-piercing sword. True sword rain. Gold-plated sword pursuit. Water flooded the golden mountain. After an unknown period of time, the sword techniques of the metal and water sword principle were mastered by Wang Xian. The deeper Wang Xian cultivated, the deeper his perception towards the combination of attributes was. Phew! Wang Xian, who had stayed in the sword training room for at least half a month, walked out. He revealed a faint smile on his face. He moved a chair and sat at the entrance to rest. I must succeed. I must avenge my family. At this moment, a determined roar came from outside. Wang Xian was stunned for a moment. A look of astonishment appeared on his face. His eyes flickered as he looked outside. A skinny young man was carrying a 2-meter-long sword on his back as he walked into the sword mansion with great difficulty. His body was filled with wounds. The terrifying sword rays that contained two types of energy, gold and water, were constantly attacking him. The skinny young man only had the strength of a level 9 extraordinary. However, the attacks that he unleashed were extremely powerful. Dual attributes. He has dual attributes as well. Furthermore, he has both metal and water attributes. Wang Xian looked at the energy fluctuation on the emaciated young man and was stunned. The young man was only 50 meters away from the sword mansion.